recent Liverpool trophy parades. You know, the whole city comes out to support massive events in Liverpool. We've got the Labour Party conference going on in Liverpool at the moment, obviously, and that's proven that the infrastructure is there, that the facilities are there. But I think really that the thing that brings it most home to Liverpool is it is just the most fun city in the UK. So I just think everyone I've seen on Twitter saying, you know, they basically can't wait to go to Liverpool. We've beaten up Manchester now. I think it's ours in the bag.
Team Glasgow, what big names have you got supporting you?
Oh, I mean, loads of big names in terms of if you're wanting, like, musicians and stuff like that. We've had so many musicians that have come out of Glasgow that are absolutely amazing. More so, I know obviously the Beatles are huge, and I will say I do love Liverpool. I feel like Glaswegians and Scousers just have this connection. We do just get on, and I know Liverpool's a great city as well. I think it's the best city for us to be up against. I'm glad it's those two. But if we're talking about more modern musicians, we've got Lewis Capaldi, Parliamentary, people that are actually in the charts at the moment. Nicola Sturgeon has already come out and said that she is in support of this. She would be delighted to have Eurovision in Glasgow, held in Glasgow on behalf of the Ukrainian people. So, I mean, I don't know if there's any bigger names than our First Minister.
Well, there's Lulu as well, of course, isn't there?
Oh, well, I mean, if you're talking about musicians, yes. I mean, Lulu won Eurovision. You know, she's actually a Eurovision winner. She's absolutely amazing. And when you were talking about there, Liam, about Liverpool being a UNESCO City of Music, we were the first City of Music. Glasgow was the first City of Music back in 2008. So we bet you to that title. We got that title before you.
Yeah, there you go, Liam. What are you going to say to that then?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. By the way, that I think it's the best two cities for the job have come down to the final two, and I think there is definitely a very friendly rivalry between Liverpool and Glasgow, because anyone who's heading up north for a party knows that they'll stop off at Liverpool for a party and then they'll probably head on to Glasgow. I think the other thing, obviously, it's really important to recognise Ukraine within this bid, and Liverpool is twinned with Odessa in Ukraine, one of the first cities to welcome refugees from the war here as well. There's been, Liverpool is an extraordinarily welcoming city. It's an international city. It's a port city, obviously, and I think all of those things tie in. They've really based the bid around support for Ukraine as well, which I think is really important. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like sort of big names and stuff, I hope we can get Paul McCartney there opening the whole event. And if not, in an Atomic Kitten, maybe, I don't know. But we've got a lot of support in Liverpool. It's amazing how many kind of cultural icons have come from the city, and music runs through the whole place.
Sure, as my son says, Atomic Cat these days. Final word from Team Glasgow. Your thoughts?
There's just no party like a Glasgow party. I've been to many parties in Liverpool and they are amazing, but nothing can beat the Glaswegian banter and the Glaswegian culture. Come to Scotland. Scotland wants to welcome Eurovision with open arms. It would just be amazing. We had COP26, which we did last year, which was a huge event, more of a serious event. Let us have a fun event now. Let us have a fun world event.
Final thought from Team Liverpool?
I think Glasgow did do COP really well. I think it's Liverpool's turn, to be honest. We haven't had a sort of major event since kind of the capital of culture in 2008. There are big events going on in other cities. Liverpool is a city that thrives on hospitality, on music, on restaurants, on bars. And to be honest, the boost that it would provide to our local economy would be absolutely enormous. And I'm just absolutely confident that it would put on one hell of a party.
Okay, good to talk to both of you. May the best team win. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Just before we go, a quick look at some of the tweets that are making headlines for you today. And these are two. The Independent Bank of England overreacting to the instability of the pound, ? John Redwood had a view on that. Almost 6,000 people looking at that already today. Use the hashtag #KBurley or @KBurley if you prefer. And looking at one other, I think, that we've got for you as well. This morning, the government took a major gamble with its mini budget and is betting the House on growth. That from the Institute for Fiscal Studies, I think it was. Yeah, there you go, from Ben. As I said, actually, even more people looking at that than what John Redwood had to say. You can follow Ben here. You can follow Sky News, of course, there as well. Coming up in just a few moments' time, we've got Ian King live, of course, for you, and then the rest of the news going through the day. I think we've also got an interview for you with Sir Keir Starmer following his speech to conference yesterday, and then I will be back at 7 o'clock in the morning. Will you be with me? I sincerely hope so. See you then, 7 o'clock, don't forget. Bye for now.
¡Viva México! ¡Viva! ¡Viva México!
Appreciate globally. So get in touch today and let us make your product and business go far. Welcome to Gabby Dave Global. We are a UK-based online e-commerce store, the first of its kind with license to trade in African products. Some of the products are clothing brands and all beauty accessories, hair and beauty brands, natural aphrodisiacs, processed and dried unprocessed food. Our mission at Gabby Dave is to connect African and Caribbean businesses to customers globally. At Gabby Dave, we ensure our sellers get the best deal for their products. We are not just here to help you reach a wider audience. We are also a distribution center to support business growth by fulfilling orders to your customers from our warehouse, making sure customers receive their products on time. We are inviting all Black-owned businesses to trade on our platform because we strongly believe Africans have a unique brand the customer would appreciate globally. So get in touch today and let us make your product and business go far. Welcome to Gabby Dave Global. We are a UK-based online e-commerce store, the first of its kind with license to trade in African products. Some of the products are clothing brands and all beauty accessories, hair and beauty brands, natural aphrodisiacs, processed and dried unprocessed food. Our mission at Gabby Dave is to connect African and Caribbean businesses to customers globally. At Gabby Dave, we ensure our sellers get the best deal for their products. We are not just here to help you reach a wider audience. We are also a distribution center to support business growth by fulfilling orders to your customers from our warehouse, making sure customers receive their products on time. We are inviting all Black-owned businesses to trade on our platform because we strongly believe Africans have a unique brand the customer would appreciate globally. So get in touch today and let us make your product and business go far. Welcome.
A rap on the knuckles from the IMF as the Chancellor is told to think again about his economic plan that has caused turmoil in the market. A record drop in mortgage availability with more than 900 products taken off the market in one day. Shoppers pay a record 10.6% more for food than a year ago as the war in Ukraine continues to push up prices. A breakthrough for driverless technology that works in both cars and vans. Plus a look back to 1987 when interest rates were above 8% and the Smiths ruled the world. Good morning, this is In King Live, an hour of business and economic news from the heart of the city. Well, the Chancellor's economic plan was designed to boost growth, but so far it's spurred turmoil in the markets and led to mortgage companies withdrawing some of their products. Parliament is in recess, but the Liberal Democrats are calling for it to be recalled to deal with the economic crisis. And criticism of the government's mini-budget has become international overnight, with a stinging rebuke from the International Monetary Fund. Well, here's what the pound has been doing this morning. It's currently more or less unchanged right now against the euro. It's off 0.2% against the US dollar. Meanwhile, yields on UK 2, 5 and 10-year gilts are little changed on where they were yesterday. Well, in the last few minutes, we've had evidence of what the turmoil of the last few days is having on the mortgage availability, with a number of providers taking products off the market. Here are the figures. New figures coming from Moneyfacts today show that today residential mortgage availability is recorded at 2,661 products. Well, just 5 days ago, that number was 3,961. There's been a drop of 935 products in the last 24 hours alone, which is a new record. Well, joining me now is the economist Dr. Mohammed El-Erian. He's president of Queen's College, Cambridge, and an advisor to Allianz and Gramercy. Dr. El-Erian, very good morning to you. I mean, it is very unusual, isn't it, for the IMF to criticise a G7 economy in this way. What's motivated it, do you think?
I think two things have motivated, and thank you, Ian, for having me on. One is the IMF being concerned about the implications for the global economy of the UK shooting itself in the foot. And two, an internal IMF issue, wanting to show that they are even-handed, that this is not just about criticizing developing countries when they make policy mistakes, it's also about being brave enough to speak to one of the major economic powers.
Very interesting you say that then. You really think the IMF is concerned about contagion here?
It is. Already before the announcement, markets were jittery, and what we've seen happen is that the announcement has added to the upward pressure on yields globally, meaning higher borrowing costs, and the upward pressure, the continued appreciation of the dollar. So this is not just a UK issue, this is a UK fueling a global development that is resulting in significant damage both to global markets and the global economy.
Yes, it's worth pointing out, isn't it, while we're seeing UK gilt yields spiking high, we've seen a number of bond yields right across, from the US Treasuries to German bonds hitting multi-year highs as well.
Yes, absolutely. We are going through a paradigm shift. We are exiting the period of highly distorted markets, and we are going back to better functioning market, but the journey is incredibly bumpy. And what the IMF is saying is, don't make it more bumpy. It's already plenty bumpy. Now, the destination ultimately is a good one, but we've got to get there. And that's why everybody's so focused on the journey.
Now, as an experienced bond investor, what would you want to be hearing right now from the UK government to sort of take some of the pressure off gilts?
And let me also tell you, as an economist, it is not enough to stabilize the situation, because as you've pointed out, when you shock the UK economy with such a large change in borrowing cost, you create a lot of damage. You spoke about mortgages. It's not just the price of a mortgage, you have to pay a lot more for it now, but it's the availability of mortgages. So the typical British household, the typical British business is being hit by four things at the same time: higher borrowing costs, high inflation, a destruction of wealth, and concern about a recession and therefore income streams. So you've got to revisit the package, not the first two elements that are sound, promoting economic growth through structural reform and stabilizing energy prices, but the third element, large unfunded tax cut. That's not the time for that. That can come later.
Now, the Bank of England has probably been as clear as it could be that it doesn't plan to make any interventions until its next scheduled Monetary Policy Committee meeting on the 3rd of November. What would you think might change that? What would have to happen for the bank to have its hand forced?
So it's understandable that they don't want to do this. They want the spotlight to be shining on the government. And if they were to raise interest rates, and let's be clear, what's needed is a full percentage points at least They just did 50, so twice as much as they just did. If they were to do that, the spotlight would shine back on them. So I understand the Bank of England being cautious, not wanting the spotlight on them at this point. If I were them, it would be a very difficult judgment, Ian. They definitely are going to hike aggressively come the 3rd of November. And the question is, should they hike before? What forces them to hike before is a return of turmoil to the bond market. If we see market malfunction, then they're going to have to intervene.
Well, obviously the bank said last week that they were going to start selling down the assets that they accumulated during QE. Would it be wise for them to hold off that, given the turmoil in the gilt market?
Look, that is the difficulty of exiting an artificial policy regime. So we cannot continue with artificially low interest rates. We cannot continue with bloated balance sheets among central banks because inflation is a problem. So we have to respond to inflation. You know, there's the old saying, Ian, financial stability isn't everything, but without it, you have nothing. So it is very important to get inflation under control. And the central banks around the world have to respond. They're late in responding. So unfortunately, they have to do even more than they would have had to do otherwise.
Now, the one central bank that is by and large now getting ahead of the curve, or at least up to speed with events, is the US Federal Reserve. Obviously, this is impacting on Wall Street pretty dramatically. How much lower do you think some of these main US stock indices have to go?
Hard to say. We've had already a major move down. The NASDAQ is down over 30%. The S&P is down over 20%. And if you held bonds as your safe asset, you're down 15%. So you've lost money everywhere. And that, again, has to do with the exit from the artificial liquidity regime. How much further down? I fear that markets remain fragile. I fear that the Fed, having been very late in acknowledging that we have an inflation problem and moving, is now going to overdo it. So there is both what market participants calls an interest rate risk and a credit risk to the marketplace, and therefore there's a liquidity risk. So I would be very careful here. I would want evidence of stabilization before putting more money to work in US stocks.
All right, Dr. Olayomi, we've got to leave it there, I'm afraid. Great pleasure talking to you today. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.
Well, now, new figures out today show that shoppers are paying a record 10.6% more for food than they were a year ago. Well, according to the British Retail Consortium Nielsen IQ Index for September, overall shop price inflation accelerated to 5.7%. That was up from 5.1% in August. Well, food price inflation increased from last month's 9.3% to 10.6%, driven by the war in Ukraine, which is continuing to push up the price of animal feed, fertiliser and vegetable oil. And fresh food products cost a record 12.1% more than last year, up from 10.5% in August. That was the highest rate for the category on record. Well, joining me now is Emma Revel. She is from the British Retail Consortium. Emma, welcome to you. I mean, food price inflation is obviously the standout here. Which are the foodstuffs that have gone up the most?
I think the easiest example to explain is margarine and milk. That is because a lot of fertiliser, animal feed, has its basis in vegetable oil, and fertiliser itself is often exported from Ukraine. Obviously, with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, those supply chains have been disrupted, meaning suppliers are having to look in other places, or in some cases use alternatives, which means people will have noticed in the shops the price of milk and margarine have been especially affected.
We're now coming up for nearly 9 months since Russia attacked Ukraine. I mean, on an annualisation basis, you'd expect to see this level of food price inflation starting to drop off in the next 3 or 4 months, would you?
I think there is a hope that other countries will have been able to increase their supply, which will make up for some of the shortfall from Ukraine. But Ukraine was contributing a very large percentage of things like vegetable oil to the global food market. So it's hard to say at what point, other countries will be able to pick up the supply that's been lost from Ukraine. And unfortunately, because we see no immediate end to the conflict in Ukraine, it's hard to say when their supplies are going to be back online.
What about some of the individual pressures facing food producers? We had on the programme earlier this week British apples and pears, and obviously they've had a bumper crop, but due to labour shortages, they're probably not going to be able to get as much of the produce as they would like into the shops.
Yeah, there are a lot of underlying factors, the conflict in Ukraine not being the only one. Lack of labour market supply is one of them, rising energy and therefore transportation costs is another. As you say, actually the bumper harvest in the UK has contributed to a very good harvest for things like strawberries and blueberries, so they're not being affected price-wise as much. But as you say, there are a lot of other factors, including labour market tensions and lack of supply in the labour market, that are feeding into difficulties retailers are having.
Emma, what about non-food? What have been the standout items there that are seeing big inflation numbers?
The things that are heaviest, so furniture in particular, because of high transportation costs and the rising cost of petrol and oil, they're the things that are hardest to transport, anything particularly heavy, so furniture, but also wood that's made into other uses. Things like flooring, for example, is also seeing a big price hike.
And in terms of, I mean, a lot of that, of course, is down to the Chinese COVID restrictions that have been coming in. Again, is there any light at the end of the tunnel here for consumers?
That's a very difficult question to answer. I will say that retailers are doing everything they can to absorb as many costs as they can. And when it comes to food, retailers are doing things like extending their value ranges, freezing prices, introducing or expanding discounts for vulnerable groups like carers and the over 60s. So, retailers are trying to keep prices down, but it's because of the complex range of underlying factors that are driving up prices. It is hard to say when prices begin to come.
All right, Emma, appreciate you joining me today. Thank you. Some other business news stories for you now. And the US banking giant JP Morgan has vowed to double the size of the workforce at its UK retail banking division, Chase. Sanjeev Samani, the chief executive of Chase in the UK, said the bank had attracted 1 million customers and more than £10 billion in deposits since its launch a year ago. He told Reuters he wanted to double the workforce to at least 2,000 within 2 years, as the bank seeks to replicate what it has done in the UK in other European markets. The online fashion retailer Boohoo warned this morning that full-year earnings will be worse than expected. Boohoo, which last year bought the Dorothy Perkins, Wallace & Burton brands from the administrators of Sir Philip Green's Arcadia Group, blamed the macroeconomic and consumer backdrop. The company, whose brands include Nasty Gal and Pretty Little Thing, reported a 90% drop in half-year pre-tax profits to £6.2 million. The shares have fallen by 9% this morning. Meanwhile, shares of Just Eat Takeaway have risen this morning following the online ordering and delivery company saying that it expects to report an underlying profit during the second half of the year. That is earlier than predicted. The company, which is listed in Amsterdam and London, had previously said it expects to report an underlying loss of €75 million for the second half of the year. Well, the better-than-expected performance is thought to reflect cuts in central costs and the marketing budget, as well as increases in the fees that it charges both customers and the restaurant operators who are on its platform. Now, driverless or autonomous cars are not quite commonplace on the streets yet, but Wave, a London-based startup, is claiming an industry first with its development of AI technology that can drive two different vehicles of drastically different sizes, a passenger car and van. Its system has already shown that it can enable electric vehicles to drive autonomously in any city. Well, joining me now for more on this is Wave's chief executive, Alex Kendall. Alex, welcome to you. How did you build this AV system that could generalise between cars and vans?
Well, good morning. Look, this is a system that is built with machine learning. This is a technology that allows us to train our cars to learn really complex and adaptable things, like being able to drive two different vehicles at the same time. If you or I get in a different vehicle, we can drive it very, very quickly. And if we get in a completely different type of vehicle, like the vans that we operate, we can learn to adapt to that new type of vehicle incredibly quickly. Now, what we've been able to show for the first time is an AI system that can do exactly that. The future of transportation needs such a diverse range of vehicles to be able to provide for the needs of society, and so that's why we think it's important to be able to build a generalizable driver.
And why was the technology not previously available? Presumably this is a bit of a holy grail in the AV sector.
Oh, absolutely. To date, the industry is Well, I mean, there's been a lot of incredible progress from the AV, autonomous driving industry. We've seen services launch in a few places around the world, but it's taken years of effort and billions of dollars to integrate in a single type of vehicle. Now, this breakthrough is significant because it means that we can enter new markets and deploy this technology faster than was previously thought because we can adapt to new vehicles. That's the key, and that hasn't been possible before.
And what does this mean for the UK AV market in particular, this breakthrough?
Well, I think this is a really important breakthrough because we're excited to be launching trials with our partners Asda and Ocado later this year, and certainly allowing us to adapt into vans enables the possibility of launching last mile grocery services like the ones that we see on the streets today. So to be able to provide those with autonomous driving, this is a really significant growth driver for the UK. The UK government believes that by 2035, this will be a $40 billion opportunity and create up to 40,000 jobs. So I know we've had a lot of negative news about the economic climate this week, but I really think we need to be talking about growth, and this presents that kind of opportunity for the UK.
Well, very interesting you say that. I mean, obviously the new team in government is looking very heavily towards growth as their priority. I mean, what could they be doing to help the AV sector in particular?
Yeah, it's really critical that we see primary legislation created that enables this technology to be brought to society. If you think about the benefits of autonomous driving, sadly, over 1.3 million people a year die on roads globally, and countless more non-fatal incidents cause massive economic strain through to congestion on our roads or other fatalities. And if we think about the sustainability opportunities about having a more efficient and effective mode of transportation, the benefits are enormous. For us to unlock that, we need to see this technology legalised, which in the UK requires new primary legislation. We saw in the Queen's speech this year that the government announced that this is a priority for them, and it's really important that we see this brought to bear this year. So we're confident that the UK is working, government is working on this, and what we need to see is legislation to make this possible.
All right, Alex, we've got to leave it there. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
Well, still to come here on Ian King Live, we'll have a look at how global markets are doing this Wednesday morning. It's not all about the pound, as I said yesterday. There's lots more going on besides. Stay tuned to find out.
Thanks so much, you too.
It's actually been excellent. It's been a tremendously challenging season this year with all of the very hot weather and the very dry weather. But actually what we've produced, thanks to all the sunshine hours, is a really delicious, intense flavour crop. A crop of apples and pears that I think the industry is going to be really proud of. We're still in the middle of harvest, but I know that growers are struggling, and they will prioritise. If they haven't got enough flavour, they will prioritise, and it will mean that some fruit gets left behind. But we have our fingers crossed that this year we will get as much fruit as possible onto shelf for shoppers, because those shelves are now fully stocked. We estimate that the costs that growers are facing are likely to put 10 to 15% on the cost to the retailer. How much of that is then passed on to the shopper is up to the individual retailer and how much margin they choose to take.
Well, I think the first thing for a Frenchman, my mum has taught me about local values, and for me, local values are the most important. To be able to completely reinvent all of our orchard, which we have done since the last 10 years, and grow some extraordinarily beautiful apples, which are now, at last, filling 40% of British shelves in all supermarkets. I found that really exciting. I think for a long while, British apples were not on the market, and now there's an extraordinary appetite, and we have experience. We've got an extraordinary orchard experience. We have a perfect climate. We have all the skill, and we are now growing some of the very best apples in the world.
Well, the pound has slipped on foreign exchange markets so far today after staging a modest recovery yesterday after Monday's falls. I think you can show you the current price of the pound against the US dollar and the euro right now. Sterling currently off by around 2/3 of 1% against the greenback, more or less unchanged right now against the euro. It's another day of dollar strength right across the piece. The euro currently off 0.5% right now against the dollar. And elsewhere on foreign exchange markets, I should alert you to this. The Chinese renminbi has fallen to a new all-time low against the dollar overnight. On the gilt markets, meanwhile, yields on 20 and 30-year UK government bonds have risen above 5% this morning. We've also seen yields on German 10-year bonds rising above zero for the first time in 7 years. That is quite a big, dramatic move, as we were discussing earlier on with Dr. Mohammed El-Arian. Well, on the equity markets, following last night's falls on Wall Street, we've seen declines across the Asia-Pacific region overnight. Japan's Nikkei closed at its lowest level for nearly 3 months, while the Hang Seng in Hong Kong, look at that in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen there, off by nearly 3.5%. That is amid concerns over both the housing market and the commercial property market. It's a similar picture here in Europe. All of the main European indices in negative territory right now, all of them off by more than 1%. The MIB in Milan, as you can see there, off by more than 2%. Here in London, again, it's a similar story. The FTSE 100 is off by 2% right now. Clearly, it went below 7,000 yesterday, and it's held below that. It's a broad-based sell-off led by some of the banks and the property companies. There are not too many specific stories for investors to hang their hats on this morning. The biggest percentage faller in the FTSE right now is Airtel Africa. That's off by some 7%. Not very many gainers to mention at all, but as you can see on the screen there, Burberry is up by just over 3%. That's after it named Daniel Lee, who's a respected figure in the fashion industry, as its new chief creative officer. Outside the FTSE, Aston Martin Lagonda, the shares there are off by 12%. Sorry, the screen's showing a bit of Scott of the Antarctic there, but yeah, Aston Martin off some 12%. It's updated the market on its latest cash call. 94% of existing shareholders have agreed to take up their rights. Meanwhile, the doorstep lender non-standard finance is off by some 58% after warning it's broken its banking covenants and will require fresh capital. Oil price, here, it's been lingering on the screen there for a few moments. Strength, it's off again. That's partly down again, I think, really to US dollar strength as much as anything. A barrel of Brent crude will currently set you back $85.89 a barrel, and that is down a little under 1/3 of 1%. Well, joining me now is Anna MacDonald from Amati Global Investors. Anna, welcome to you. I mean, obviously we've talked a lot about the macro picture, about sterling and gilts, but there are some individual interesting features in the stock market that are being affected by this as well. House builders, for example.
Yeah, house builders had a little respite last Friday when Kwasi Kwarteng first talked about, well, actually it was earlier in the week when he intimated, or we heard, that stamp duty was likely to be cut. So there's a little rise, but then as the full extent of the statement became clear, it became clear that mortgage rates were going to go up so substantially, and this has really hit the property stocks such as Persimmon, Vistry, Barclay, they've all fallen between 10 and 20% since this news.
I mean, house builders have, I mean, for the last few years, really, the constant theme whenever they've updated the market is that there's a shortage of supply against demands. Will the fundamentals of that remain intact despite the fact that mortgage products availability is becoming tighter?
I think the fundamentals of demand do remain intact. We know that we're not building enough houses. I think that Kwasi Kwarteng tried to relieve some of those supply side issues in his statement, and I think that we'd all agree that these stocks are offering tremendous value over a long term. But given the short term uncertainty with what we're seeing in inflation, what we're seeing in interest rates, and mortgage costs particularly, I think that you could almost take your time and sit this out until there's some more clarity.
And how nervous would you be about commercial property stocks right now? I mean, it was interesting in Hong Kong overnight. We had a sharp sell-off there. A lot of that was down to falls in some of the big property stocks.
Some of the big property stocks and some of the big banks, because if you think HSBC is also listed in Hong Kong, and they're about 20% of their businesses in the UK. So commercial property does tend to react very quickly to problems that they're seeing. The China property market is also having a pretty awful time, and a lot of people's wealth is tied up in that. So commercial property stocks, both in in Hong Kong and in the UK have been sold off. Many of them do tend to be geared, so that's got us a double whammy effect as values fall and interest rates go up.
Now, in terms of companies updating the market today, we had a statement from Boohoo. They put their interims out, dropping profits, and the outlook statement was what really seems to have put a bomb under the share price.
Absolutely. The first half, they said that, and this has been well flagged, they'd had a few profits warnings in the past. They said revenues would be down 10%, but we're still hoping for a little bit of growth on what was quite a weak comparative from last year into the second half. What they're saying now is they see that quantum of the decline continuing into the second half, and their margins are also being squeezed by higher costs. What's really interesting is that whilst we've known that the US has been really difficult, and they just posted a minus 29% decline in the first half, the UK is now starting to be weaker too, and they are flagging weakening consumer environment there.
Now, Anna, we're only a couple of days away from the end of the third quarter. You often see a bit of so-called window dressing from asset managers at such times. Is there much of that going to be going on this quarter, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think that's the UK market is in a little bit of a state of shock since the announcements on Friday. We're seeing some really dramatic moves in consumer names, and I don't know how much impact these window dressing will really have towards the end of the quarter. I think the markets are just really looking for some more ideas of some certainty, maybe ahead of the proper budget that we're getting on the 23rd of November.
All right, Anna, well, we'll leave it there. Good luck with the rest of the quarter. Nice to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we've got a bit of breaking news to bring you, not particularly encouraging breaking news either. We've had a statement from South Korea, which in the last few moments has said that North Korea has fired a ballistic missile towards its eastern waters. That's all we've got on this at the moment. We'll bring you more on that story on Sky News here as soon as we get it. But in the meantime, here to come on Ian King Live, how a new and unique manufacturing facility in Ireland could streamline gene therapy developments globally. Don't go away.
Welcome to Gabby Dave Global. We are a UK-based online e-commerce store, the first of its kind with license to trade in African products. Some of the products are clothing brands and all beauty accessories, hair and beauty brands, natural aphrodisiacs, processed and dried unprocessed food. Our mission at Gabby Dave is to connect African and Caribbean businesses to customers globally. At Gabby Dave, we ensure our sellers get the best deal for their products. We are not just here to help you reach a wider audience. We are also a distribution center to support business growth by fulfilling orders to your customers from our warehouse, making sure customers receive their products on time. We are inviting all Black-owned businesses to trade on our platform because we strongly believe Africans have a unique brand the customer would appreciate globally. So get in touch today and let us make your product and business go far. Welcome to Gabby Dave Global. We are a UK-based online e-commerce store, the first of its kind with license to trade in African products. Some of the products are clothing brands and all beauty accessories, hair and beauty brands, natural aphrodisiacs,
right, Miss Gold, thank you very much, Miss Gold. Miss Gold was saying that we've not activated the audio on the Facebook. And so I say massive good morning to you. Miss Gold there. I hope you are doing very well. How are all the UAEans? Okay, my greetings to every one of you in America, those of you in Asia, those of you in Europe, those of you in Africa, the African continent, and those of you in Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, South Africa. I salute each and every one of you. Amayo, good morning to you. Anthony Energy, good morning. Aziz, good morning to you. Great. Miss Good, I'm happy to know that you are doing very well as well. We are also doing very, very well. Thank you. Okay, so let me sum it up. All protocol observed. And for those of you who are tuning for the first time, the very first time on a Wednesday morning to listen to us, this is how the program goes on a Wednesday. I'll bring you the question and then weather forecast will follow suit and the travel updates. We'll move on from there to have a look at some of the stories making the rounds across the globe. Then from there we continue to look at some of the updates from Nigeria. That's going to be snappy because it's a Wednesday edition of the morning show. 11:30, the lines are open for you to add a voice to the discussions. We continue to look at some of the other stories around the globe. And at 12 o'clock, we bring the first part of the program to a close to take you to the PMQ. As we know, the parties are having their autumn conference. We do our best to see whether we can bring you some schedule of it. Well, yesterday, the Labour leader made a statement. And they are bringing a party, that's government in waiting. We'll bring you more. We'll touch on a few things. If possible, we'll try to see whether we can bring you the full presentation that he did. Playing in the background, something from Pastor Chidera Boachias. And it says everlasting to everlasting. Okay. Alright now, so let's crack on. The question today says you can have a good time. You can have a good time. Yes, it's good to have a good time. But if you do that at the expense of your future, you will pay for it. It is your choice. So do all the partying, do everything that you need to do. But don't do it at the expense of your future. That's a wise saying there. Start ready, okay? Jump on the three. Let's move on straight to the weather front. Let me tell you how the weather is going to be today for those of you in London and the southeast of England. Miss Board, how is the weather in UAE? Is it a bit cooler now? What time do you get cool weather? Do you even, and what do the temperature be when it's cool there? I need to go to that place. I need to visit there and see how the weather is. But for those of us in London and the southeast of England, this is how the weather is going to be for you. This afternoon we'll see a mixture of patchy cloud and sunny spells. A few scattered showers will develop through the afternoon, but any of these will be short and sharp. Now showers will ease this evening and there will be clear skies in the night. Now through the early hours, cloud will spill in from the north, bringing showery outbreaks of rain to many. You're coming away from Starr, the temperature is going to be 15 degrees, the low is going to be 7 degrees. UV level, low pollution, low sunset 1846, and sunrise for tomorrow morning 0656 hours. Okay, Miss Gold says it's so hot in UAE. Okay, thank you. And those of you who also want to share the weather in your area, feel free to do so. Or you can post your comments on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, and on our Twitter as well. And I promise you one thing for sure, if you do, I'm going to read that out. And of course, acknowledge you, of course. Alright, then now let's move on to the travel updates. That will be after the short commercial break. Stay tuned, don't you go away. Starr Radio UK. No worry, I'll bring you the full length of that song uninterrupted in the next few moments. Stay tuned.
Getting onto the property ladder has never been easy until now. Join us this and every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. live on the Property Hour Show on Starr Radio UK, where we talk to mortgage brokers, property developers, estate agents, landlord, tenant, property consultants on how to invest or get into the property business and make money. You can't afford to miss this. The Property Hour Show is your best source into the property industry.
This is Starr Radio. This is Starr Radio.
Okay, so keep your eyes on the roads, keep your eyes on the roads, so keeping updated. Promise, our bond, the salary to travel America to where we do from 10:40. It's not 10:46. And how is your travels like? Are you around our Gege area in Nigeria, Lagos? How is the traffic like there? Okay, but here, let me tell you what is happening here in London and UK. When it comes to the underground, I can tell you shortly, if you want to travel via that good service there, London Underground good service, DLR London Transit good service there as well. And moving on straight to the major roads in London, yes, the roads are, now A13 has got closures, A4 closures, Central London Red Roads closures, South Circular A205 closures there as well. Continue to keep your eyes on the roads as you keep me navigated, I promise, our bond. Moving on to the river bus. On the river bus this morning, apart from the only ferry that's got special service, all the others have got, as you know it, good service. And let's move on to the London cable car. Yes, the London cable car has also got good service there. Interestingly, I've not traveled on the London cable car yet, so I need to have a trip on that, see how it feels. I'm not scared of heights though. If you are, not. Alright then, now moving on to the final segment of the travel update. That is the National Rail. On the National Rail, Adventure West Coast has got a reduced timetable, and we've got the cross country that's got minor delays. Now, East Midland Railway has also got minor delays that is affecting travels, services there. Now, Grand Central has also got minor delays on some routes. Now, Great Northern Railway, minor delays on some routes as well. Now, Great Anglia has got minor delays. Your eyes on the roads, keep your eyes on the roads. How trains, minor delays there as well. London North Eastern Railway, minor delays. Now Lumo has also got minor delays. Merseyrail, minor delays. ScotRail, minor delays. Southwestern Railway, minor delays. Now when it comes to Sunset Express, now you want to travel via that to catch a plane or there, please, minor delays there, so check before you leave. And Thames Link has also got minor delays on some routes. When it comes to First Transcontinental Express, got amended timetable. Little side, all the others have got good service, and that is why I say it once again. As I say, say it loud. Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn to you wherever you might be on planet Earth. Enjoy your commute for today, but you know what? Continue to keep those eyes on the road.
Through SendWave. SendWave is a money transfer app that is used by people all over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission-free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it. You're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR, S for Starr, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Grazie.
Hi everyone, it's your girl Bibi Clement, the author of How to Go from Employee to Entrepreneur. I'm the host of your weekly business show, Bibi Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Star Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your
Everywhere you go, Afrobeat reggae dancer taking over. Everywhere you go, Afrobeat reggae dancer taking over. Yo, what's up, people? This is a boy Raskin Baby One. Tune in every day, every night at the Star Radio UK with the big man, them Archie. When I say Arta, you say fire.
And I say welcome back to the program. It is Star Radio UK, and it's now time for Global Trotting. Yes, that's updates from across the globe. I mean, we've been looking at some of the stories that we're going to be looking at when it comes to Nigeria. Now, Lamar threatens to pull out of APC Presidential Campaign Council, and that's how some of the stories is some of the news networks are capturing that. Now, fresh crisis rocks APC as Tinubu overrides Buhari governors and other parties deciders or the big groups there. Now, how is it going to pan out for him? The APC crisis takes a new twist as powerful chieftain begins discussion with PDP. Okay, it is the end for the PDP. Some news network are also asking, I will quit politics with Buhari, which joined PDP. XSGF Lawal is saying a soldier who supplied guns to Abuja kidnappers for 300,000 naira nabbed by the SSS. Interesting. Well, and then some other stories there as well. Electoral Act campaign in churches, mosques are illegal. I don't want. Okay, we're going to be looking at those stories when it comes to the updates from Nigeria. A lot more going to be coming your way. Yomi is still working behind the scenes, but as and when he has the time, he's going to hop on. So let's wait. But these are a few of the stories that he's put across this morning. It's all coming your way from Star Radio UK. Now, moving on to other stories as well from the African Front. Lawyers critical of Daddy's arrest before trial begins, and it says that the trial of former Guinea dictator Musa Daddy's Camara is opening today in Conakry, 30 years to the day since the massacre that killed more than 150 people at a political rally in the capital. On Tuesday, the former dictator and another 5 defendants were sent to prison by the appeals court. One of the lawyers, Mr. Salifu denounced the move. We're going to be looking into those stories as well. Well, NDC flag bearer will serve as president for more than 4 years after 2024 elections. Prophet Bedu Kobi is saying, what does it mean? Now, the other time was sometime last week, he came out to say that, look, the NDP are going to win the election. Now, it's come out with another president. The founder and leader of the Glorious Wave Church International, Prophet Bedu Kobi, has dropped another revelation about the 2024 general election. It's going to recall that on September 18, 2022, Prophet Bedu Kobi made it clear that the NDP will be declared winner of the party for the 2024 elections. He said will be declared. So as whether they want to free or fairly, that one he didn't say that. However, he's gone on to make another prediction. Okay, but we'll bring you more on that front. And he is saying that the NDC flag bearer will go for more than 4 years. Then are we talking about the fact that because we know that former President Mahama had done his first term, so he just has only 4 years more to go. Does it mean that there's another person going to be the flag bearer of the NDC? Do you get that? Okay, we'll bring you more on that front as well. Don't touch the dial. Well, social media has reacted to Katie Hamon's criticism of youth who hooted at Akufo-Addo. It says that Ghanaians on social media have a lot to say about Dancy Asukwa legislator Kobnata Harry Hammond today. The member of parliament had taken exception to the reception received by the president Akufo-Addo at the Global Citizens Festival on September 24. The president was booed by the youth while delivering a speech in line with organized is machine. Well, but he is taking a different case. So, however, KTM sees the move as disrespectful on the part of the attendees. This is a place where they tell you that when an adult says something, whether I say BS or anything, you dare not say anything, just be quiet. And I think that's made a lot of us timid, hasn't it? Well, we'll be looking more into that. When does respect come in, and when does let me put it this way, intimidation comes in to make people timid there as well. Lots more going to be coming your way. Ghana will hit a snag with debt calculation in IMF negotiations. That's what the former Minister for Finance and Economic Planning Secretary has said there. And government rejects $1.5 billion financial loss claimed in GNPC Genza agreement. Another agreement? Yeah, we will be looking into that as well. Now moving on to other parts of the world here across the globe. Hurricane Ian intensifies as it races towards Florida. Florida's vulnerable Tampa Bay area could be struck directly for the first time in a century. Okay, total blackout for Cuba in wake of Hurricane Ian. Now, the island electrical system is experiencing a complete collapse in the wake of the deadly storm. There are some stories making around there. Now, sabotage behind Nord Stream gas leaks, says EU. Seismologists said there were underwater blasts before the leaks emerged near Danish island. Who undertook that? Is it the Russians? Is it the Ukrainians? Who did that? Okay, the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed named Prime Minister. The 37-year-old son of King Salman is already seeing the de facto ruler of the is already seen as the de facto ruler of the oil-rich Gulf state. So why should he be giving a ministerial appointment there as well? Okay, we'll be looking at that. Now, Myanmar only finds model sentenced to 6 years jail. The model and former doctor had previously posted pictures of herself at anti-junta protests online. Now, well, the junta are still going on their part, doing whatever they have to do. We vote for Bolsonaro because he is God. My goodness, that's blasphemous. Now, well, somebody said that no, in the first of two profiles of the leading candidates in the race to become Brazil's new president, Cathy Watson asked if incumbent Jair Bolsonaro is, as his fans argue, a great leader or someone who disdains democracy. Wherever Jair Bolsonaro goes, he likes to stir controversy, but few were expecting him to do so on the eve of Queen Elizabeth's the second funeral. As world leaders flew to the UK to mark his passing, President Bolsonaro saw an opportunity to do some campaign. Now, is it God? Is it going to be one that people be voting for when it comes to the Brazilian elections? Wow. This and a lot more we're going to be looking at. Now, government must urgently rethink tax cuts. Some are saying the Labour leader calls for the review of the UK's mini budget before a fiscal statement in November as the IMF criticizes the plan. Now, so Ghanaians shouldn't take it. I mean, we have some Ghanaians, Muslim government said, oh, you know, even the IMF criticized that. No, they didn't say that. They said what I was going to do is going to widen the gap. It's going to make some people very, very rich and others. That's what it is. But it didn't say they should come for them to have a look at how they have to do the expenditure, and that's not what they said at all. So people think again and come back. All right then. Party sent stinging an unusual rebuke by IMF. So that's what the IMF has said there. We'll be looking at that as well. And US groups to fight Scotland's abortion buffer zone for today's for life back protests outside Collins, and will help mount a legal challenge if a new law is passed. Those are some of the stories making the rounds there. It is Starr in the UK. It is the Wednesday edition of the morning show. A lot more going to be coming your way from this time to the end there on. So stay tuned. Don't touch the dial. Keep your dial so locked on. But do me a massive favor, share the broadcast with your friends and loved ones and invite them to like our pages. Thank you. Enjoy this music now, and I'll be with you.
This is Starr Radio, Starr Radio
on your smartphone.
From Pastor Tudor Boachians, there is no one like our God. Alright then, I've got Mr. Koiki, who is all lined up this morning to come your way. As I said, yes, because few of the stories that we're going to be looking at. So wherever you are, don't even think of touching the dial, but let's go straight to our North London studios where Mr. Yomi is, and let me say, Yomi, good morning to you. Yomi, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Okay, just bear with me a moment. Let me just take a quick break and I'll come back to you. Yeah. Alright then, let's start with you, okay? Let's show the audio bit out for Mr. Olayomi Koiki and then let's go on.
Hi guys, this is your friend Urush from SendWave. SendWave is a money transfer app that is used by people all over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission-free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it, you're good to go. Make sure you reach the phone.
Hello, Mr. Archie.
S for Star, R for Radio.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Very much. Okay, we can hear Yomi now. I think it was from his end. Thank you very much to the technical team up in the North Studio as well, who were also saying to that as well. And let me say, Yomi, good morning once again.
Well, a very good morning to you, Mr. Archie. Good morning to all our listeners, and sorry for that bit of technical there, and I believe we've been able to resolve it. I welcome you once again to those of you that have joined with the Wednesday edition, the 28th of September 2022, 6 minutes past. It is your finest African and Caribbean radio station in London. And if you're joining us for the very first time, remember to follow us on all our social media handles, because every 11 o'clock we discuss all the news coming out of Nigeria, as they say, the most populous black nation in the world.
Yes. So how have you been?
Well, sorry we couldn't, join, yesterday, and likewise, day before yesterday. It's just that there's quite a lot of work that we're doing behind the scene, and definitely we will be back later on as well for the Niger Voices. But we will catch up with some of the news, and I'm sure you've been very well taking care of our listeners, especially, the Nigerians, the indigenous people, because we have to always remind ourselves that they are the indigenous people all over the world, just as I was looking at a country that is not even up to 12,000, known as Tuvalu. Tuvalu is just under 11,000 in terms of population. They have their own prime minister that was also at the United Nations General Assembly, also telling UN to allow Taiwan to be recognized as a member of the United Nations. Tuvalu is number 43 when it comes to their passport index in the world, as against the most populous black nation in Africa, which is Nigeria. Their passport index is 83. If you have a Tuvalu passport, you will likely travel to more countries than a Nigerian passport this morning. So I say good morning to all our indigenous listeners, and likewise, as the electionary campaign starts today, I'll come back again to you in the studio, Mr. Archie.
Yes, listeners, Mr. Olayomi Koiki. In our North London studios, I'm Archie here in the South studios, and we're bringing you updates from Nigeria. Now, let's come to, let me say good morning to Shamsuddin Oladipopo. I say Yoruba Nation now. God bless Yoruba Nation, and God bless you all there as well. Thank you very much, Shamsuddin. Okay, so now let's slap on straight to some of the story that is making the rounds pertaining to, you did talk about the fact that the campaign starts today. Yeah, so how has the various parties, because yesterday we had information coming through that the APC, as you posted, that the APC were suspending their campaign. So I'm not very sure of it. Now we have the PDP, that is, in loggerheads, we don't know exactly what is going on there as well. So what exactly is going on?
Well, as the campaign kicks off today officially, up to the timing there before the election next year, it shows that most of the political party have not been able to get through, when it comes to issues, when it comes to issues affecting them. Once again, this is Starr Radio UK, your finest African and Caribbean radio station in London. The election election campaign is going to start today, but it seems that the political party have not been able, to sort out their ring, happening among them. Let's talk about the PDP. As much as the PDP today inaugurates its 2023 Presidential Campaign Council in Abuja, the nation's capital, as political campaign officially began in line with election timetable stipulated by the Independent National Electoral Commission. The PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar and the campaign council members will be expected to storm the International Conference Center in Abuja for that purpose. But also, let's look at the APC. We still have the issue that the party has said it will go on with campaign program despite withdrawal of Rivers State Governor Nelson Wike and all other political heavyweights. So that means, the PDP are not going to be waiting for Wike. They're going to go ahead with the campaign as we expected. Let's talk about the APC. We know that according to the news that the presidential aspirant for the APC is currently back again in London on a medical checkup. So that means that the chances of their campaign kicking off anytime soon will have to be reviewed, and we will have to wait and see what is actually going to happen. Late night Monday, the Director General of Tinubu and Shetima Presidential Campaign Council and the Governor of Plateau State, Simon Lalong, explained that activities lined up for the official inauguration of the APC campaign will no longer hold as planned. Remember, Tinubu is back here in London on a medical checkup, even though he's not going to be telling us that. Let's now look at the Labour Party. The Labour Party presidential campaign Peter Obi has not even constituted his campaign council, as he was said to be making consultation across the country. He was in Kano State, the northern part of Nigeria over the weekend. He met with the former dictator Ibrahim Babangida, and he also met with Abdusalam Abubakar. But what we can say is, according to the National Publicity Secretary of the Labour Party, Abayomi Arabambi, also disclosed that the party has no plan to host any inauguration. So it seems that the three political parties are probably still getting out to find out, how the campaign will kickstart within the next couple of days, as we're going to be giving that information on Star Radio UK. I'll come back again to you in the studio. Once again, this is Star Radio UK, your finest African and Caribbean radio station in London.
Yes, listeners, Mr. Olayomi, Koiki in our North London studios. I'm Archie here in the South studios. We're bringing you updates from Nigeria. And let me say thank you to my able producer, Mr. Francis Guy, notifying us of the cracking sound. So if you encountered that, we sincerely apologize. I hope that the sound is much sweeter and soother now. Okay, Ganu Abiodun says Nigeria lack of integrity. Yoruba nation, we stand power. Chief Sunday Adeyemu, God bless you. And Anthony Adedeji says thumbs up, and thumbs up to you, sir. I hope you are doing good. All right then. Now let's move on to some of the some of the stories in line with that. We had the Peter Obi, who went to see some of the the former leaders, and some people were of the view that he's still saying one of those things. Now, do you think that Peter Obi has shot himself in the foot by going to see the former leaders?
Well, there's been a bit of critics, when it comes to, and this normally will come from Showore, as we know, just as a lot of Nigerians believe that going to bow for people that destroy the country, because when we look at Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida and looking back to how the former the late Chief MK Abiola died, because he was not given the mandate, and the democracy that we're enjoying today was actually fine-tuned by the late Chief MK Abiola. Yes, you're quite right. This is what Showore says. We saw also Peter Obi, went back again to the former president Olusegun Obasanjo. Olusegun Obasanjo, according to Showore, the father that ruined Nigeria twice and his lapdog. That is Showore there. He also says when the picture of Peter Obi, the Labour presidential candidate, and also Abdusalam Abubakar. Remember that Abdusalam Abubakar actually was the one that gave us this fraudulent 1999 constitution that is being enforced on millions of Nigerians. The senior advocate of Nigeria have disagreed with that constitution, and that constitution is one of the problems. But it seems Abdul Salam is now a peacemaker, within the the caucus. And Showore says they rob Nigerian blind, they murder its citizen, they sabotage his aspiration for greatness, and now they are hanging precociously to life, yet they want to hand over the country to their apprentice, accomplice, minors and cronies. That is talking to Peter Obi there.
Well, listeners, do you think that this election is going to hold or not at all? I mean, we've been talking about that for ages. Do you think it's going to hold? And I said during the course of the program, Yomi is going to tell you how many days more. And do you think the video campaign kicking off today are we going to see anything of the sort? Now let's talk about the
135 days, 13 hours, 44 minutes. 135 days, 13 hours, 44 minutes. Will the most populous black nation have an election, or are we going to see a breakup of Nigeria, as it is now officially 2 more days before the letter expire by the Yoruba self-determination movement to the presidency? And as the Biafra also says from their communication that I saw yesterday, that there will not be any campaign in the southeast.
Interesting. Now, yesterday we did talk about the fact that Lai Mohammed coming out to say, oh, he went to an event, I think, where we had some Igbos came to perform. It was a cultural event, and we said, look at it. That's how Nigeria is. We are all together. Everything is fine. Those who are calling for cessation and blah blah blah. So he went on all that path. Now, do you see it? I mean, with the 2 days left for that letter that Professor Akintoye did write to the federal government, do you think we're going to have any response other than no?
I was reviewing that letter yesterday, with some of our listeners from around the world, and I got that letter in front of me. We're not going to go into the details, but it says, and I quote, Mr. President, we are conscious of the requirement for the statehood under the international law, and we are happy to inform you that we are qualified to assume sovereign statehood on the following ground. The permanent population that we have in the recent official statistics, it says that there's about 30 million Yorubas in the country. So that means what matters, that means the population is there. And remember, I was just telling you about Tuvalu. Tuvalu is a country in the South Pacific Asia that was got their independence in 1978 from the British after independence, and they are still operating a country. They have their own system of government, and like I said, I was able to read what their prime minister said during the United Nations 77th General Assembly. So it's a country of 12,000, and that was the conversation yesterday, that if we have a country of 12,000, I'm sure a 30 million can decide if they want to have their own country. But that's subject to whether the government will respond to this letter. We have the defined territory, we have the government, we have the capacity to enter into international relation. The question then is, will the government give room for dialogue, for a peaceful dissolution? But rather, we will have to wait and see what is going to happen next in the next almost 48 hours. Because that letter expired on Friday.
Well, the other time you had one guest on the show, on the Niger Voices, and he did talk about the fact that there were some clauses in that when the amalgamation was being made, where some people were being, especially those in the South, were being asked, do you want to be part of it? And they were saying that they were very reluctant and stuff like that. In that particular amalgamation thing, because if you are looking at the Constitution of Nigeria and within that has not been embodied in it, or 2 days to the time, no reaction from the central government or the federal government, do you think there is anything in that clause or that agreement that gives the Yoruba people or the Igbo people the chance to say, look, this was in the clause, so we think that maybe allow us to go?
The clause, whether the government will permit that, and it takes me back again that the president was actually reminded that on the floor of the United Nations General Assembly in 2015, 2017, you affirmatively and persuasively stated that self-determination is an inalienable right of every nation in the world, and it is immoral to deny any nation its right to self-determination. When you were asked about the Nigerian situation regarding a major ethnic group agitating for self-determination, you answered that if that ethnic group would pursue its agitation by peaceful means under peaceful organization, then the Nigerian state will be obliged to negotiate with that group. Mr. President, we therefore dutifully draw your attention to the fact that since we launched our agitation of the Yoruba Nation self-determination in the year 2019, we have unfailingly pursued the agitation through peaceful means. Our people have established over 100 self-determination organizations. The question you ask is whether the government will give room to that. Yes, we do know that the Nigerian constitution is a bit tricky one, but we do know that according to the African Union, there is room for self-determination under the the Declaration Act of the Resolution Act of 1514, which says declaration on the granting of independence to colonial countries and people. And not that alone, there was a correspondence that went through that I received yesterday by one of our comrades that was actually sent to him after he wrote to the to the British government. And this is part of what he says. Thank you for your email that was sent on the 25th of August, UK-Nigeria bilateral relationship. Your correspondence has now been passed. I never knew that we have a Nigerian unit in the Whitehall. This was something that I got to find out myself. The UK government acknowledged that Nigeria and UK share a long and complex history, including the period of the colonial rule that ended in 1960. Today, our close relation is underpinned by our Commonwealth membership and our cooperation on economic and security matters. As you rightly pointed out in your correspondence, many Nigerians have chosen to make UK their home, and these people-to-people ties are also important aspect of relationship. It now goes further. Nigeria is a trusted partner of the United Kingdom, but we do not share the view set out in your correspondence that the UK government seeks to interfere with the Nigerian political affairs. Nigeria is an independent sovereign nation, and the United Kingdom government respects this. Additionally, the question of who Nigerians elect as their next president is a matter of the people of Nigeria, and the UK government remains neutral and impartial of this. We also do not share your view that the UK government has engineered instability in Nigeria for their political gain. As the Africa's largest economy and democracy, the UK government wants all Nigerians, want to see a stable, secure, prosperous Nigeria that delivers jobs and opportunity to all Nigerians. This was a letter that was dated yesterday to one of our comrades, across the globe.
Well, that's a letter there. I think that is, trying to capture or touch on some of the issues. But as to whether we will have the federal government or Buhari's government listening in and to adhere to that and say, because he said that with the statement that Buhari made some years back in the UN and stuff like that, whether he's going to say, I've made that statement and this is what others have said, and therefore I have to have a rethink about what we are doing. We don't know. Let me say good morning to Green for God, God News. Now, good morning, my brother. Good morning to you there as well. It is Starr Radio UK, the Wednesday edition of the morning show, 11:23 from the House of London. Mr. Olayomi, Koiki and Love London Studios. I'm Archie here. Let's move on to some of the other stories that is making the rounds. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Archie. Once again, Niger Delta Commission Director, Nigerian Capital Territory officially arranged for combined over 3 billion Naira fraud. That is coming from the headline, Electoral Act Campaigning in Churches, Mosques are illegal. Ajulo warns places designated for religious worship, police station, public offices shall not be used for political campaign. As we know that today makes it the official day for all the political party, to start their campaign, across, Nigeria. Mr. Ajulo reminded candidates that the Electoral Act placed restrictions being placed to prevent the use electoral malpractice that started even from the period of the campaign. Section 92 of the Electoral Act 2022 provides for prohibition of certain conduct at political campaign, he noted. And we have to continue to wait and see how those campaigns will kick on
as we do know. A lot of tension in Enugu. Security forces and unknown gunmen have exchanged fire, according to the headline that we have coming out of Nigeria today. The police command in Enugu has confirmed an attack on a joint operation checkpoint at Amudu community on Amudu Road in Inkwanu West local government area. The command spokesman DSP Daniel disclosed this. The attack happened at about 8 a.m. broad daylight yesterday. It shows how Nigeria has become a very, very difficult one. Let's take one more, come back to you, because this is a Wednesday and we don't have time to take everything. But later on tonight on Niger Voices, we will have everything it takes to give you the news headline, and we'll discuss all the issues with the election upcoming. And the next headline says, bandit Northwest Niger Republic governors met over free movement of people and weapons. The governor of the Northwest Niger Republic have called for a review of ECOWAS article on the movement of persons and arms to tackle bandits. The governors of the Northwest and that of Niger Republic have called for the review of ECOWAS article both for the movement of persons and arms to tackle the lingering security challenges in the region. This was contained in a communique issued yesterday by the Castina Secretary to the State Government, Mutaru Lawal, at the end of the multilateral security meeting held in the state. We know that the Niger Republic, the Chad, and those areas have been one of those areas that have allowed influx of the people, and not just only that, light weapon and heavy weapon coming into Nigeria. Once again, I come back to you in the studio at 11:25. If you're sending money home to your loved ones, remember to use Starr send waves. If you're doing it for the first time, it is best to make sure you put in the Starr for radio, R for radio, and that will give you the code as well. S for Starr, R for radio, and you will be able to get at least a bit of discount, especially as Nigeria going into a bit of recession. We come back to discuss that if there's enough time, but for now I'll come back again to you in the studio, Mr. Archie.
Yes, listeners, Mr. Olayomi, quite quick for you. Now, you want me a quick one on the campaigning. I've got Mr. Frank Davis here as well. Let me say morning to you, Frank.
Archie, good morning to our listeners. Archie, Olayomi, good morning to you.
Good morning, Mr. Frank.
Yes. Now let's quickly go to Yomi, and then I will ask your view on that. Now, the electoral laws seem to be saying that there shouldn't be any campaigns in churches and mosques. Okay. Now, but in the past, what has been the practice?
Well, we've seen presidential candidates, making their way into the church and the mosque. Because there's a numbers in the church and the mosque, and we have to be honest with that, because we have churches that have members across the country. But it seems they are trying to avoid that this year, and we'll have to wait and see whether that will be something that the political party will listen to. Yes, you are allowed to move around the country, put the billboard out there, use the jingles, the radio, but going into the churches to campaign is something that the INEC is really going to be strict on, according to what we say, in that headline.
Now, it's interesting. I have got Frank here because I know he's a political animal. He likes all the political campaigns and stuff like that goes on, and he looks at it critically. But once I get him on, Moyi was in the guys said, good morning, White Lion and Mr. Archie. My regards to Mr. Frank for your analysis yesterday. I was not able to watch it live, but I replayed it and I love it. Thank you very, very much, and we love you to be doing that as well. So now, quickly, Frank, if in the past, I mean, we have in Ghana, in various places, they said that there's no campaign in churches or mosques per se, but we have people who go to this this candidate is going there, so they don't just go and say vote for me, but he says he has come to join you in your service, and they say this is the MPP or this is the APC or PDP presidential candidate, and he will just say yes, these are my policies. That is campaigning.
Archie, thank you very much. When we campaign so that people can hear us. Yeah. So we go to where people congregate. The churches and the mosques happens to be a very fertile ground. Yeah. For that. So what politicians tend to do is to use subtle way of campaigning, visiting churches, attending funerals, attending birthday parties, attending all kind of things where people congregate, where people can see them. That is what they do. But actually, I do agree with the law that states that campaigning should not be allowed in the churches, in the mosques. Imagine a chapel where someone is a Yoruba, someone is an Igbo, someone is a Fulani. So the essence of congregating over there is to either worship God, to do what Muhammad has asked us to do. Assuming you are the imam of that cathedral, you are the imam of that mosque, you are the pastor and apostle of that cathedral, you support Olayomi, and I have my supporters over there. Archie has his supporters over there. How are you going to pray, or how are you going to lead us to if you declare publicly that
you support the party A or candidate A?
We've seen churches doing it, we've seen pastors doing it, but actually it does not augur well for the unity of the church. There are some institutions that, in my view, should be left untouched, should be left undivided. That when there's a problem, that is where we rush to as a people, so that our common sense can come back to that. Look, apart from politics, we still are a family of let's say start a mosque or this mosque, so that reason and wisdom can prevail over there. That's where dispute can even be solved. And it's not by accident. That's why we have churches and the mosque being given a bit of constitutional, there's into even
backing,
sometimes they even resolve when it comes to counseling. When people even are quarreling, there's a conflict. Sometimes pastors are asked to come in. The courts accept that. The mosques are asked to come. Even in this country, there's alternative dispute resolution mechanism that the Muslims do have. So they look at those institutions as a way of bringing a bit of peace within. So if we go there and all out, this person is campaigning, that means the last pillars that will be able to hold the society together are being destroyed again by politics. So the question is INEC, is the electoral commissions from these various countries actually implementing that law? Are they actually respecting or are the pastors even respecting those laws? Pastors want to be this person is going to win, let me declare for them, let me do all kind of,
when they come in, I can get the recognition that I need. Well, listeners, it is Starr Radio UK. Thank you very much, Mr. Frank Davids. I've got Mr. Olayomi Koiki, and I'm of London Studios. I'm Archie here, and we're bringing you updates from Nigeria. Because of the time, it's a Wednesday edition of the morning show, already 11:32. Let me go straight to Yomi for the rest and what is happening on the social media platform. Over to you, sir.
Just going to dive into the social media, and it seems again, trending on the politics. Hashtag Obi.023. So it seems Peter Obi is really pushing, and we have to wait and see how far this push can go, especially as well. Number 2 trending, hashtag the man Atiku also is trending. So let's just quickly take a look at the first trending this morning, and it seems, if I have the first person, is a critical thinking, strategic being, analytical, quality engagement. A GCFR cannot outsource. It should be personal trait. A new, vibrant and working Nigeria is possible, according to Agua Chamber 1. That is on Twitter. So quite a lot of youth. Peter Obi was also at the Ooni of Ife, the Ojaja II, one of the first-class monarch of the Yoruba, where I was able to see a video of him as well. And it says that if you are obedient and will be voting Peter Obi in February 2023 as the next president of Nigeria, retweet aggressively. We no go chop Agbado. Remember that Agbado was what Tinubu says that when you employ 50 million Nigerian youth into the military, what are they going to eat? They will eat Agbado, which is literally mean maize. They will eat cassava, and I'm sure that has become a trending conversation. So that is what we can use on Peter Obi. Let's look at why again Atiku is trending as well. And again, it seems it is happening today. Atiku books presentation at the International Conference Center, where I believe it's already ongoing, or probably still in the process, where they're probably going to be also launching their campaign. So we will give you more update on that probably at 6 o'clock during the Niger Voices. And this person says, a visionary leader, a true Democrat, a leader par excellence, a nationalist, the father of restructuring. So we'll have to wait and see whether he's actually the father of restructuring. So now let's go and see what other news is trending on the social media before I hand over back again to you in the studio, where we can then bring this to a closure. Let's take a look at what Simon Ekpa says just about some 33 minutes ago. When I will start, it will be bloody. Don't let me look at your enemies within this boundary. You want to cross over. I am focused on Nigeria at the moment. A big statement is coming out soon. Maybe then you will know we are not made. Woto woto. Woto woto is a language that is being used in Nigeria by a particular skit maker that it's quite when you watch it you'll probably be able to laugh all the way through. Again, Chinaza says any reasonable person should know that after hashtag Nigerian government adopted Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, his birthday was yesterday, if I'm right, if not day before yesterday. Their next move is to destroy hashtag IPOB leader, but they have failed woefully. That is coming from that. And then we're going to take one more, and we will then wind down from this part of the North London studio where we are broadcasting from. Once again, as I said, 48 hours before the expiration of the letter that was sent to President Muhammadu Buhari. But Ilana UK, we are reclaiming our identity, an independent, economical, viable, socially responsible, technological driven, environmental friendly, well secure, healthy, psychologically satisfying, attractive, self-sustaining hashtag Yoruba Nation. So it seems everything is now on the table, and as also about almost 4 days ago, Britain, take your knee off our neck. Nigeria can no longer breathe. Sovereignty should be expressed by the wish of the people who own the land and have lived in it for centuries. And that has got to do with the letter that I read earlier on, because that letter has now been put as an article, and the article says, and I quote here, Britain, take your knee off our necks, Nigeria can no longer breathe. But that letter says we don't have anything to do with Nigeria. Nigeria is a sovereign nation, and we respect that, according to the British government.
Well, they say they respect that. Do you believe it or not? You want to know more about that? Well, join Mr. Olayomi Koiki this evening exactly at 18 hours BST, same time at Nigeria, or GMT +1 for the Niger Voices. Yomi, what are you looking at on Niger Voices today?
The campaign trail that have kickstarted in Nigeria, as also the mega rally that is also coming very soon. How will that all manage itself in Nigeria? Even though the mega rally has not been announced by the Yoruba people, we know that the Biafra are saying that there will not be a campaign in the southeast. How do we manage all this crisis? And I hope the international community will also be looking into as much as what is happening in Nigeria. So we're going to be looking at everything. The 2023, the restructuring, the self-determination. It seems there's a lot of bags in Nigeria, and that means that we only have 135 days. How do we cope with all these? We're going to be discussing that later on tonight. Make sure you tune in with myself. But for now, I'll leave you with Archie and Frank that will take you through the rest of the segment of the program.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Olayomi Koiki. And let me say good morning to Comfort Olugunja. She says, regards to you both. Have a very good morning. And Miss Gold's giving lots of thumbs up and some stars there as well. Thank you very, very much to each and every one of you who tune in this morning to listen, view, whatever means that you are enjoying us. We want to say thank you very much for that. But now let's move on quickly to some of the stories, since we are already pressed with time. 11:38. I'm quickly touching on one story from Ghana. Now we're talking about the campaign that in Nigeria, the INEC is saying that, look, we're not going to be tolerating anybody moving into a church or a mosque to go and campaign. But it's a case where we have, I don't know whether we have the same template in Ghana when it comes to our election rules.
Yes, I think we do. We do have the same templates in the church. That's why sometimes you see political parties will take on either pastors for being so biased, using the pulpit for this thing.
Okay.
But what they found their way of doing, the pastors especially, will be to say that, look, prophecy. Because when they begin to prophesy, you can't question that spiritual this and that's
you and I were not there.
Yeah, but most of them deep in politics. You take Owusu Bempah for instance.
Yeah,
Owusu Bempah is a known MPP cat. Whilst you take Niger, what is Niger Geze?
Like, is it Niger Loss? No. Geze
is an MPP, is an NDC dog.
Okay.
So you see, I mean, if Owusu Bempah go prophesying everything that he says, what they call this will happen, this MPP will do this. I mean, he's a typical MPP dog. And then, so at the end of the day, people have seen through them. People can see through them. But you do not have to actually allow your pulpit to be used actively as a political platform. You do that, you bring division. And that is why even in the lower schools, it is not allowed. Because at that point in time, between the pre-voting age, that's the secondary school age, we are not, because at that point they cannot make informed decisions, or they are not allowed to vote, and therefore you cannot start dividing them, because politics divide us anyway.
We have Prophet Bedu Kobi, his statement. That's why I was asking that question. Now I think last Sunday or thereabout, last week, he came up with a prophecy that the MPP, he put it very wisely, will be declared winners. He didn't say they will win. It's different. When I say somebody wins, you say that the person is beating the person palm down, and there's a but he said they will be declared winners. Now he's come out again to make another statement. He said the NDC flag bearer who will serve a president for more than 4 years after 2024 elections. Now, if you look at that whole, listen, now we have former President Mahama, who served a first term, my apologies, 4 years. Now, so is he talking about, is he now trying to predict who the leader of the president?
I don't think he's trying to predict the flag bearer. What he's trying to do, in my view, if you look at the first statement he made concerning the MPP being declared winner, his MPP will be declared winners, but the people will not accept it. They'll say not this time, and then the opposition will get support, and there will be blood. So if we do not pray, that there's going to be chaos. Basically, that's why he's saying that election, he saw some people sitting on the seat. The leader himself will tell the people, don't worry, don't be afraid, sit, don't give up, don't give in, don't allow anybody to take the seat, but the people will not agree to that, and that might result in violence. When he's in the flag bearer for an NDC, I don't think he actually put a name. He
didn't. But where I'm coming from is, we know that Mahama has said, so the most that Mahama can do is another 4 years.
All right. So if he comes in, probably if they win, and there could be another flag bearer. So that's what, instead of saying probably the MDC will win or will rule for the next 8 years or something like that. But I don't see Mahama losing the addition. I necessarily do not see it. From what I know and from what is done on the ground, I do not see how NDC Comrade before cannot. He cannot. Neither can what they call Kojo Bunsu. No, the two of them who are now, they've thrown their
they come into the hat.
They cannot.
Okay. Now it's something
I don't see it happening.
You don't see it happening.
No, I don't see it happening.
Now, do you think we need the IGP to come up? Because when things like that are said, people misconstrue them and run with them. Okay. So do you think that the IGP, when he came earlier on, and he said that, look, end of the year we had prophets coming out prophesying this is going to happen, this person is going to die, blah blah blah, and all those things. And so stop it, you do that, I'm going to arrest you. Now do you think that he has to come out again and say nobody should be doing any prediction, because it sets people up against people?
It is a very, very difficult one, and there's a thin line between prophesying, inciting people. Now, if you say people should not prophesy, I do not agree with a lot of things that the prophets and so do. But if you go to say someone should not prophesy, you basically are trying to control freedom of speech.
Okay.
And again, you are trying to subject spiritual things into
the physical,
which you cannot do But there are thin lines that people look at and can explore. If you go to inside, this person is going to die, this person is going to do this is going to the doom prophecies, and actually you can't be charged for causing fear and panic. I mean, you're causing fear and panic. I think IGP in this very instance, I do not see how he be and the grounds on which he is able to stand. You know.
Okay. A quick one on the one other one, then we can move on quickly. Now, Katie Hammond is criticizing the youth who voted at the Kufuor and saying that they were being disrespectful. Now, when it comes to our upbringing, where we come from, they tell you that when an adult speaks, you dare not. So if the person is saying BS, you dare not say anything, and that has made some of us timid. So when do you say, okay, look, what are you doing? Like, what happened? Is it you're trying to tell you that you're absolutely BS there? Okay, and where you say that, oh, we are showing respect, and therefore, no, we are being killed or whatever, we're not going to be saying it. How do you deal with that?
Actually, not too long ago, was it last week, that we looked at a story where the minister in charge of education was saying that, or was it Monday? Was saying that he went to some classes, and when he goes to schools to finish talking, he expects people to ask him questions, but he doesn't get questions. It's the culture of training people to be timid. That's exactly what is happening. You see, I don't blame Katie Hammond. It's this kind of mentality and this kind of attitude that they want us to continue. But I agree with him though. To some extent, he went on to say that they do not have anything in their head, they cannot govern this country. It is that same mentality. That's why we have the likes of Buhari and Akufo-Addo as presidents. Because if the youth stands up and question some of the pronouncements some of these leaders were making to us, I do not think, if they interrogate and engage them actively, I do not think Buhari will be our president today. Neither do I think Akufo-Addo will even have gotten the second term to go, because the youth would have seen through it that we are mortgaging our future for these old people. Now, Katie Hammond again equates respect. We must begin to let people understand is earned. Respect must be earned. Archie, you cannot be a leader stealing the youth's future, destroying the very survivor that they depend on. They can see their future being ruined by your actions. They can see their water bodies being polluted. They can see they've completed school. They can see the hopelessness that you are creating once you enrich your family, and you still think that they should come. You're just telling me that, look, we should go back to the days when the chief sends for your wife, your sister, raped the person right in front of you, and still wants you to come and worship him. That is the kind of attitude they want us to run. Actually, those days are over. Thank God he's not 20. Thank God. You see, these are the generation that we have to be winding down. The dinosaur generation. We're gonna be winding down. You see the mentality. These are the kind of mentalities that are ruling the country. The thing that when they make a decision, the youth have no right whatsoever to question. When you question, they equate reasonable questions, logical questions to disrespect. What disrespect got to do with asking you, why are you destroying my future? You are destroying my future, and I'm asking you, you are destroying my future. You came trying to speak to me and say, look, you have galamsey destroying our water, but don't come and lie to me. I am telling you that, look, you have been lying, and I'm booing you off. I do not want to hear the lies again. Why disrespect got to do that? If the person respects the youth, if you understand that the youth were part of those who voted them into power, and if they know that leaders are supposed to create an enabling environment and a better future for the generation that is coming, he will not be lying. They will not be destroying, stealing, and then come to lie to the youth again. He was even like he wasn't what 10 others were not. No, the youth should continue. No, honestly, they shouldn't. Look, we are all aging. We'll get to a point where we also not be youthful. At any point in time, if anybody thinks that I'm destroying their future, they should confront me and tell me. Because at the end of the day, if I did not get those opportunities, doesn't mean I should compromise and destroy. That's what sustainable development is all about. Akufo-Addo talks about, he's one of the board members of the what they call Sustainable Development Goals. He's on the UNDC. At the end of the day, will he look at Pearl River today and tell me that Brim River, can he say today that Brim River will be sustainable? Wait, let's even seas. We've heard that they are dead seas. We've heard situations where, I mean, rivers that used to exist are no more in existence because life in them went extinct. Now the sinus acid, what they call it, mercury, and people can even not fish in those rivers again. And you tell me that you supervise this? They told us we were going to buy a what they call drone, 3 million. The drone is not flying in Amewu's pocket. The drone, $3 million that they spent on the drone. They didn't give Amewu the money. No. Then they approved it in Parliament. That they took a loan, approved it that they were going to buy drones to fight Galamsey. Now the drones, as we know now, are found in Akufo-Addo and Amewu's pockets. Because we can see the drones. They might be training people in their pockets, in their bank accounts. Maybe some snakes have swallowed them. Bishop Adedaya Adeshola, let me say good morning to you. Say Mr. Koiki, Mr. Archie, and Mr. Frank. God bless you. I will say God bless you too. Thank you very, very much, Bishop. All right then. Now let's move on. Because we've got about another 10 minutes to round up the program. Well, some breaking news coming through. The Bank of England has announced it will step in to calm markets. After the government tax cutting plans causes the pound to slide, the bank said it will buy government bonds on a temporary basis to help restore orderly market condition. It comes as financial leaders react to the International Monetary Fund's criticism of the UK's tax cut plan. Now, it said in its unusual blunt statement, the IMF says the £45 billion proposal is risky and will likely increase inequality. It says the government's planned fiscal statement on 23rd of November could be an early chance to reevaluate the tax changes. Okay, now, so an intervention from the Bank of England as to whether that is going to hold it or help a bit. So we'll be following it very, very closely. Well, listeners, some breaking news there for you. But let's move on straight to a couple of stories before we run up the program. Now, South Korea has come out to say that North Korea has fired a missile virtually into their seas, one of their seas. And I'm saying, look, we are in a place where already African countries who are not buying anything from Ukraine say that, well, the Ukraine-Russia war is causing their economy to shatter. And we have here where we are virtually hand in hand with them, we are crying about it. Should we allow North Korea to also now try to bring about some trouble or stoke the fire there as well? Archie, they've been testing missiles, they are testing missiles.
So we should not allow them to test it.
What can you do?
Why don't you test it in your own camp? Why are you throwing it into somebody's compound?
Well, that's what the South Koreans are saying, but we cannot verify whether it's their water, it's not their water.
Interesting.
They are international waters. The international waters. It's all, deterrent. You know.
Okay, well, they said that the Nord Stream gas leakage is a sabotage. Yesterday, whilst we were on air, they were trying somehow saying that so that means there was an explosion underneath that. Again, how can that be verified?
It's going to take some time. They will have satellite images. If they are able to get satellite images or bombs flying, then they should be able to get satellite images of that. So I think we will get to the bottom of it. Okay. That sample use submarine planted something. Which is possible. You know.
Okay, the EU have vowed sanctions against Russia's illegal votes in Ukraine. Well, as we said yesterday, this is the vote that they say, hey, gun on your head. They say, hey, vote whether you want to remain or leave. They said they're giving you a choice, but they had a gun. And so what will you say? And they said that they got 99.1% of voters saying that they want to be part of Russia. But the EU is saying that sanctions after Russia illegal votes in Ukraine, they are threatening that. Widely expected outcome, pro-Russian leaders in occupied regions say the vast majority want to join Russia.
Archie, the 99.9 results was shocking.
Everybody wants to go to Russia.
It was not. It's not something that is surprising. I mean, at the end of the day, those who still reside over there will be those who side with Russia. I mean, disproportionately. Besides, who is there to be able to, who will be there to be able to say that, oh, the vote you cast, this is how we counted it. I mean, to talk of it, transparency, it wasn't. But at the end of the day, well, we've heard voting in Afghanistan, Libya, where there are war zones, Iraq. We actually supervised, we participated, actively supervised a war over there, a voting over there. So what do you call it, anything like that, for me, I don't see how Russia is going to back down on this.
Okay, we'll be following it closely, and as and when there are any details that will let you know. And let me say good morning to Totsino in Moscow. Totsino, I hope you are doing very, very well. Back in the UK, for one last story, then we can bring the first part of the program to a close. We'll be bringing you political highlights that is going on at the moment. The government has lost control of economy. Keir Starmer has said. Now, if you listen to the statement that he made yesterday, as the party leader for the close of the I was going to say MPP, the Labour Party conference that took place. Now, do you think he is now in a position to be the next Prime Minister of the country, or this is an own goal that the conservatives have scored, and then they might end up doing something to bounce back? What do you see there?
Archie, if the question will be that if today the Prime Minister and Keir Starmer are put on a ballot, and we are asked today who will be Prime Minister, I think Keir will win. For the first time in a long time, we see a lead of almost 18% above the Conservative. That's unthinkable. I mean, that is unheard of. I mean, at this time. And I think they've also not helped themselves with the quasi-quoting budget, mini budget that came. And the reason that made it even more serious for them, if for me, they have allowed the independent, what do you call it, forecasters to publish their publications, that would have been
but they didn't allow anybody, nobody had
they didn't allow anyone to forecast anything to come out with. So that alone is reading to the markets that look, you have, even though you publish this, and it cannot stand to test, because independent bodies that would be able to scrutinize it, you didn't allow them. So that for me was a very, very, very damaging thing, that is self-inflicted injury which they've actually caused to themselves. But Labour is on ascendancy. I mean, again, when parties are in power for a very long time, they begin to take the blame for everything that happens. And Liz Truss, I don't think, I mean, she wants to be Margaret Thatcher. But you say Margaret when Margaret Thatcher was coming in, there was nothing like WhatsApp.
No, we didn't have anything of this. No social media.
The way you are able to control media and information flow is totally different from what we have today. You saw what happened at Labour conference. The French event that was going on. Someone say something. Are you guys artificial? What do you call it?
Superficial black man.
The superficial black man. Days ago, this wouldn't have come. Margaret Thatcher's time, mobile phones could not easily record and share information like that. So the control information that might have helped Margaret Thatcher at that time, because history will tell us that Margaret Thatcher, the first 2 years, she had a bit of difficulty. The Falklands War shot her up. This want to see someone showing that I'm strong, I'm a military person. I think that's, I mean, whilst we are talking on the bread and butter, they are saying that I'm taking over that island, protecting the people. So Liz Truss, I say if they last more than 6 months, that'll give them credit. And as we speak now, we heard Conservatives have started submitting letters for a leadership contest.
Wow.
So we have Italian So they started this morning. LBC were reporting that people have started submitting letters. And you see, interestingly, the same economic plan that they presented, if you listen to the debates that ensued, I followed a bit all the way, although I was in Ghana. There was one hustling that they did, and Rishi Sunak said, look, the plan Liz Truss is proposing will result in the collapse of the pound, the economy, the business, the confidence. And actually, interestingly, we all became zombies. Nobody asked Rishi Sunak, why are you saying that? Why will it result in that? What will happen? And actually, as if he was in Ghana or Nigeria, or probably Bishiru's church,
he's a prophet.
Goshen City, they would have made him the cardinal prophet.
Yes,
you know.
Yes, he predicted right.
That is it. That's exactly what we're facing. You know?
And I was saying that. I mean, we were having a chat with the Mrs. and then I was saying that if Rishi Sunak is sitting somewhere now, he'll be saying, "You see what I told you? You see." But the issue with that was that, I mean, this is a country where we know if you're not English, I mean, let me put it that way. I mean, we've seen it. It's going to be difficult for you.
Howard.
Yeah.
Are you thinking
what I'm thinking?
No, we're voting against you.
So that's why Rishi couldn't get for sure. And some people were saying that he's a backstabber because he didn't allow Boris and that. So people use all those things against him.
Yeah, that people normally will view it as someone they cannot trust. Because if you are in a team, they expect you to play certain roles. You might not agree, but the way you exit also counts. I've kept on saying that if you look at the way Gordon Brown, pushed Tony Blair out of power, upon everything that was not good. You might have assumed the office, but for me, it will follow you. The consequence will follow you. The only problem I think Liz Truss made, the mistake, the biggest mistake she made, was to find a place for Rishi in her cabinet. Because I think the guy is good.
He's brilliant.
The guy is a very smart guy. So whatever the case, I think you needed some of those people around the table. Going to make what do you call it? This Etonia, what do you call it? The business secretary. Who come and speak in James English?
Yes, my posh boy.
He only come and speak in James's English.
What is his name?
We talk of New Testament. We talk of New International Version.
He's talking King James.
He will come and be speaking King James English.
Unfortunately, Liz Truss, one of the mistakes that she's done is if you are not taking Rishi Sunak on board, his people, you should have brought some of them on board. None of them.
I think it's a mistake. That's no wonder letters have started going. I mean, if Sunak people line up and even submit letter, they will cross the figure.
Definitely. You know? And I don't know whether Bojo is lazy in his late to say yes. Look at the FNU Kwabachani.
I don't know.
Wow. But with his stance, I mean, we're going to be running up listeners. His stance on he was talking about anti-Semitism, and then the fact that this lady, an MP, made that statement, and the next moment just fired.
I love the quick action that they took, and I love the way the lady has reacted. She personally called Koiki and apologized vehemently. Came publicly. But you see, when they talk of unconscious bias, this is it. This is a typical.
It's there.
That is it.
It's there.
I mean, she didn't think that whatever she was saying we have that kind of we draw that backlash. But what she did was, I mean, basically the opposite of what should have been done. That's what we got. But it's something that is in there. It comes naturally because it came naturally.
It came naturally. I mean, you were just chatting and just said it.
These are some of the things she discussed around her dining table. She discussed it around her tiny dining table with people who share the same view. And it's about my color, about my skin.
Who are maybe fortunate in this that.
The question, example, so because she is not a white, it doesn't matter. The Asians can be racist, blacks can be racist, and whites can be racist. It's about what you say, how you view people, how you consider people, the lens through which you view different people, or if you're going to use color as a main lens through which you view people, then
that's how you're going to be viewing them. Okay, thank you very, very much. Frank, before we go,
Archie, they shouldn't forget this evening we have Olayomi on with Niger Voice. Let's listen to what, especially now that we know APC has suspended campaign. It's our grandfather's sake. What is happening, we'll know in the evening.
He's going to get some caffeine injected in his system so that he will not be sleeping.
So you voted for someone who already is telling you that my medical bills are mounting.
Thank you very much, my able producer. He said Jacob Rees-Mogg. Yes. Francis, yes, that is our posh boy.
Our posh King James boy. I call him King James boy. The guy, always King James.
You know his hairstyle. I mean, listen, this is just a joke. It's like Hitler's hairstyle, you know. You put a mustache here.
And the way he speaks. The other time when he was addressing the nation, he was talking about, did you see what he did? There was music playing out the background, like the way you listen to his
I will listen to him.
The guy was delivering a speech as if it's a pastor that is delivering sermon. Hey, listen, have a wonderful day.
Alright, so see you all this evening exactly at 18 hours where we'll be having Olayomi Koiki bringing you Niger Voices. There's lots happening and make sure you don't miss out on it. Bye bye for now. It's me, Archie, Mr. Frank Davis, Mr. Francis Guy, our able producer, and all the team saying have a top of the day. Bye bye for now.
In terms of, the House will be aware that in effect GPs and indeed dentists are private, they're independent practitioners. But it is important. We've already seen reasonably good success with the NHS on getting primary care in terms of doctors into many of our wider right across the country. I think there's a lot more to be done on dental care.
Daisy Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This isn't a plan, this is an ABC of Conservative failures. GPs are now seeing almost 12% more patients than they were just 5 years ago. The GP sector is facing a retirement time bomb, and 1 in 5 patients can only see a GP for less than 5 minutes. Patients need to have more fully qualified GPs. The government set itself a target of 6,000 by 2024. Has it now just given up?
No.
Sir Edward Lee.
It's not the fault of successive Conservative Secretaries of State that every time they come with a plan, forward with a plan, the queues just get longer. The NHS asks for more and more resources, and more people have to be imported from abroad. The fault is with the system. The last example of collective planning and socialist central control and ever more targets like today. It simply doesn't work. Will the Secretary of State, the Conservative Secretary of State, have an open mind to looking at the social insurance systems of France, Germany and Italy? Well, they can mock, but frankly the health outcomes in these countries are far superior than ours. People are fed up with paying all their life and being the end of the queue. It shouldn't just be the rich who can access private health care.
I understand why my right honourable friend makes the point, recognising that many other countries in Europe have that approach. However, that is not the approach we are going to take under this government.
Joan Warren.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituents face intolerable delays in A&E or for an appointment or for referral for mental health treatment for an ambulance. Those who work in the NHS face plummeting morale, effective pay cuts and staff shortages. And her response is to aspire to a GP waiting time which is 7 times longer than Labour actually achieved. Isn't it the case that the NHS has not been and never can be safe in Tory hands?
I don't agree with the Honourable Lady at all.
James Morris.
Madam Speaker, can I welcome the Secretary of State to her place? And as she considers her priorities, would she agree with me that we still need to focus on early intervention, particularly commending the programme, the Start to Life programme, which is designed to help young mothers in family hubs, that we shouldn't lose sight of that priority. We shouldn't lose sight of that priority as she tackles the other issues of the NHS.
Well, I'd like to thank my honourable friend and indeed for the what he undertook as Minister in the Health and Social Care Department. I'm conscious that the important care, and I'd be very happy to welcome him indeed with my right honourable friend who has contacted me today to undertake such a care in order to make sure that we do have important provisions, not just in the emergency services that we have, but also, as he rightly points out, some of the clinical care which needs an extended intervention to make sure that we get proper care overall.
Karen Buck.
For some years now, and at any given time, my local hospital has the equivalent of around 1 ward of patients who cannot be discharged because of the lack of social care for them. London has the largest shortfall of care workers of any region in the country. It is September. We are on the edge of winter. How will her plan ensure that local authorities are able to meet the pay and conditions expectations in order to fill that shortfall of care workers and get our hospitals able to concentrate on new patients as they should?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, that one of the reasons I've decided to diagnose, in effect, what is happening care by care is really important. But nevertheless, more generally, of course, I'll be inviting the £500 million care fund in order to make sure this matter happens.
It may be helpful if I explain that I'm trying to call people in this statement who perhaps didn't get in the last statement first. Selene Saxby.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. North Devon has a more elderly than average population with very low unemployment. Whilst warmly welcoming my right honourable friend's plan for patients, please can she detail how we can recruit the numerous vacancies we have in dentistry, pharmacy, nursing and social care, especially given the lack of affordable housing available, mostly driven by the surge in holiday lets and second homes?
Well, thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I can assure the Honourable Lady that she will be hearing from the local NHS in order to make these functions happen.
Diane Abbott.
I'd like to welcome the Secretary of State to her new role. I heard the Secretary of State say earlier that she wants to encourage people to go into social care. Does she appreciate that the main thing discouraging people from going into social care is the very low wages? And this is a particular issue at a time of a cost of living crisis.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, this will vary according to the provision that's been there, and I'm sure that she will want to be careful and absolutely considerate in how she addresses the local NHS in order to tackling those patients who don't need to be in hospital today, in order to how we help them with some of the features that they enjoy.
Dr. Andrew Morrison.
Welcome the statement. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that though we're terribly grateful to people from overseas who are among the very best and kindest and most compassionate of carers, we must ensure that we grow our Indigenous workforce, and to do so there has to be financially competitive for them to work in the care sector. There must be a professional career structure open to them, otherwise we're not going to make any inroads into the 13,500 beds that are occupied at the moment by people who must not be in hospital, who need to be in homely settings in the community, and ambulances will continue to queue round the block, and frail elderly people will not get the care that they are entitled to.
Well, my right honourable friend is right to consider this in a broader scale, but of course with the local NHS we will be focusing on that. There are certainly different parts around the country where there isn't the same provision of where discharges are not happening to that capacity. Meanwhile, we have some parts of the country where they are extraordinary amounts, and that's what we need to focus on locally.
Clive Betts.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Yesterday, the County Council's network produced a statement which simply said there is a crisis in social care. It echoed the findings of the Levelling Up Select Committee. So the £500 million announcement by Secretary of State is welcome, but all it does is replace the funding stream that was cut in April to do exactly the same job. So when is the Secretary of State going to recognise the enormous financial gap that councils are facing and the poverty pay that is not attracting care workers into the sector and actually come forward with a real policy? If she wants the money, why not go ahead with the cut in corporation tax and use that funding for real benefits for people in social care?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, that will work dependently on local areas, and I'm conscious that he, as the chair of the Select Committee, to take a broad brush, but I think it's important that we have a local NHS to achieve that.
Ruth Edwards.
You welcome my right honourable friend's statement, and it's been great to see how elective surgery hubs around the country are helping to tackle the backlog. However, we are yet to have one in Nottinghamshire. So could I ask my right honourable friend to look kindly on Nottinghamshire's bid for a new elective surgery hub, and would she meet with me to hear the many merits of its case?
Well, my honourable friend is right to appreciate that. I think it's fair to say we haven't responded that, but I know that my honourable ministers will be taking advantage of that very nearly soon.
Judith Cummins.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I welcome the Secretary of State to her new role. But with 9 out of 10 dental practices in England not accepting new NHS patients, and with over 2,000 dentists leaving the NHS in the last year alone, NHS dentistry is in crisis. So whilst today's small changes alongside the minor tweaks announced back in July are welcome, they are underwhelming given the scale of the crisis. So when will the Secretary of State complete the full contract reform with prevention at its heart so my constituents can access an NHS dentist when they need to? Secretary of State.
Well, the Honourable Lady is absolutely right, and I completely agree with her. It is a real problem. We've started doing some changes already, and we need to do that in more detail right across the country. But my honourable friend, the Minister, will be looking into that more intensively.
Mark Harper.
Madam Deputy Speaker. In Gloucestershire, the lack of ability to discharge people from hospital because of inadequate social care is the primary reason why we have ambulances queuing. So I welcome the Adult Social Care Discharge Fund that the Secretary of State has announced. Can she set out how the £500 million is going to be allocated so Gloucestershire's local NHS will know how much it can expect so that it can work with Gloucestershire County Council to improve matters for my constituents?
Well, my right honourable friend is correct to raise this. I think it's fair to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we will still be working in detail on where that will be allocated right across the country.
Tim Farron.
Deputy Speaker, 41% of my constituents with a cancer diagnosis are now waiting for more than 2 months for their first treatment for that cancer. We know that every 4 weeks that people wait with a diagnosis for treatment, they have a 10% reduction in their chance of surviving it. So this is killing my constituents every single day. There are quick fixes that are sustainable that could make a difference, and one of them is radiotherapy, an investment in radiotherapy up front now. Would she agree to meet with me and the all-party parliamentary group on radiotherapy and key clinicians so we can help her to get to grips with this problem and save my constituents' lives?
Well, I'd like to thank the honourable gentleman that the Minister for Primary Care, my honourable friend, will be meeting you.
James Cartledge.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I warmly welcome my constituency neighbour to her new dual role. I'm very grateful for her statement, and particularly her commitment to work closely with the independent sector. She'll be aware figures show that as many as 1 in 10 adults in England have used the private sector in the past 12 months. Does she agree without them, waiting lists will be even higher? And will she therefore consider the reintroduction of tax relief on private medical insurance, first introduced by Ken Clarke in 1989 and scrapped by the party opposite?
Well, my honourable friend, it is great to see him, and of course we cross each other across the river, River Deben, and I will look into that for him and respond to him.
Kate Green.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Secretary of State spoke both about the importance of prevention and also about the impact of the cost of living crisis on health and well-being. So will she therefore work with colleagues across government, including DWP and local authorities, to maximise take-up of Healthy Start, a scheme that can address both maternal and child health and well-being and help families with living costs?
Of course we will, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Helen Waitley.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I welcome my right honourable friend's statement, particularly her focus on access to GPs, on tackling ambulance waits, and her recognition of the importance of social care, including the £500 million discharge fund. Could she also assure me that she will be taking forward our reforms to social care, not only the cap on social care costs, but also increasing the scrutiny on care at a local level to drive up quality and make sure care workers are paid fairly?
Well, I appreciate the request from my honourable friend. It is important that we get through this. It will be done on a local level. I cannot specifically say when that will be confirmed, but I know that in Kent in particular, there's a lot of work still to be done.
Imran Hussain.
2 weeks to see your GP. Frankly, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that a target or a joke? And I know how many of my constituents will see it. Surely the Health Secretary will understand we must first address the underlying rampant health inequalities that exist in many of our cities. And in that regard, I ask her to therefore lend her support to Bradford's levelling up bid for £20 million for a grassroots, transformational, community-led health centres that will make sure that we make a real difference to health inequalities in our district.
Well, I'm not aware specifically about Bradford itself. We're still at a very early stage of going through that data and analysis. But of course, I expect the local NHS to work carefully with local GPs in order to make sure that we do get people who need care to receive it.
Andrew Salute.
Madam Speaker, will the Secretary of State meet with me and other members, no doubt including the member for South Derbyshire, who face particular difficulties over access to general practice as a result of tens of thousands of new houses which have been built, with more coming, without a commensurate increase in general practice capacity?
Well, I know that my honourable friend has been concerned for this for some time. As I've set out, there is a situation where GPs, in effect, are independent independent, and we cannot force people to be in a particular part of the country. However, I know that the NHS has been working to try and target and bring doctors into places where there aren't that many other doctors, and I know that my honourable friend, the Minister for Primary Care, would be happy to meet you.
Paula Barker. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think anyone marking the Secretary of State's ABCD homework would give her an F. An F for failing, as nothing we have heard today actually addresses the biggest threat to our NHS, which is the workforce crisis. The shortage of doctors, nurses and care workers is compromising patient safety and driving morale through the floor. So can the Secretary of State explain why the government is yet again failing to address this, and why she has said today she's talked about volunteers and medics coming out of retirement? Surely the government should be investing in a proper workforce strategy and also increasing the amount of people going through training.
You already are.
Rob Halford.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I strongly welcome the statement and congratulate the Secretary of State. She will be aware that Princess Alexandra Hospital has amongst the highest A&E per head in England, and that we are in the first wave of the new hospital programme. Will she set out the timing of the new hospital programme? Will she meet with me and my neighbouring MPs, one of them who is in the Deputy Speaker's chair at the moment, to discuss the hospital programme and just set out the timetable so she can assure residents of Harlow?
Well, I'm sure that my right honourable friend would be happy to meet on this particular occasion and to investigate this, but it's important that ministers get on with the different creation of new both diagnostic centres and hospitals, and I intend to work, frankly, at Project Speed in order to make sure we get these hospitals right across the country underway.
Munira Wilson.
Madam Deputy Speaker, over the past year, I've witnessed a 7-year-old having to be locked in a classroom because they were a danger to other pupils, and heard from the mother of a 9-year-old who hospitalised their sister. They, along with thousands of other children across the country struggling with their mental health, are languishing on waiting lists for months, if not years. So frankly, when Secretary of State says this government will be on your side when you need care the most, those words are meaningless to the parents that come to my constituency surgery week in, week out. Will she give them hope and make children and young people's mental health a priority for this government?
Brilliant question.
The Prime Minister set out during the summer that she intends to make sure that there are mental health practitioners available, both in local GP practices covering that, but also in schools as well.
Bob Seeley.
I welcome the Minister's priorities on GP appointments, pharmacies and dentistry. They're important for Islanders. May I please make her aware of the specific needs of what her department calls unavoidably small hospitals, 12 in England and Wales, covering 20 constituencies, mainly on this side of the House, of which St Mary's is the most isolated. We've done good work on improving funding, but there is more to be done to ensure fairness and equality, so will she or her ministers meet with me and other honourable and right honourable members to discuss what more can be done to ensure support for these small hospitals, which are so important for our communities? Thank you.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, I think it's in the Isle of Wight where there is a particularly difficult challenge, where there are many patients still in hospital who don't need to be. I know that I've asked the local NHS to start working with the council on how we can get that discharge going, and I know how important it is to make sure that the hospital itself can function readily.
John Trickett.
Thank you very much. This year, I myself and 2 members of my family have been in acute care in 4 great Yorkshire acute hospitals, in many encounters with staff, who I thank deeply for the work they've done. It was clear that they are universally wonderful, but that the system is under stress. And they were emphasising to me 2 basic principles of the NHS. First, that nobody should make a profit from another person's illness. And secondly, that the speed of treatment should be directly related to the gravity of your illness and not the size of your wallet. Will she confirm that she stands by those 2 principles? And finally, when will they get a rise?
Well, GPs, dentists, pharmacists, they're all independent contractors. And it's up to them on how they best manage and help patients. I'm setting clear expectations on that. Furthermore, when it comes to pay uplift for people in the NHS, we have accepted as a government the independent pay review body, and that's what we will be doing.
Stephen Metcalfe.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I thank my right honourable friend for her excellent statement and her focus on the ABCD. But none of that will be delivered without E, which is effort, and the effort that our vital nurses put in to keeping the NHS rolling, and will be vital in delivering on her plan. Will she join me in thanking them and encourage them to get behind this plan as soon as possible?
Well, I thank my honourable friend, and I agree. And it's we will, as part of this national endeavour, recognising that after the pandemic, there's still significant issues to address. We accept that, and that's why, as I say, the national endeavour is really important, why we want people to help, and also that's why we've extended some of the measures that we had during COVID. We've extended them for a further 2 years so that we can make sure people can come back more readily to help the NHS, and it's important that we strain every sinew in order to make it happen.
Just before we proceed, it will be obvious to everyone present that the Secretary of State has now been at the dispatch box for an hour. Normally, statements run for an hour. I'm going to let this run a little more than an hour, but I give notice now that not everybody who wishes to speak is going to have an opportunity to take part in this statement. It simply isn't practical. So I say two things. If you're not very enthusiastic, then go now, and then you'll be able to save up your brownie points for tomorrow and the next day. And secondly, the briefer the questions are, then the more people will get in. And I have noticed that the Secretary of State has played the game by giving some very brief answers. Thank you. Margaret Greenwood.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I note the Secretary of State's comments about hospital discharge. Now, through the Health and Care Act 2022, the government legislated for a process known as discharge to assess, as she'll know, whereby people's social care needs assessments can take place after they've been discharged from hospital rather than before. It's a model that's been going on since under the Coronavirus Act, but when I asked the government in May of last year what assessment they had made of the number of those patients who were readmitted within 30 days, I was told that the government didn't hold the data centrally. It's vital the government understands the clinical outcome of this policy, so will she please commit to gathering and publishing that data?
I hear what the lady says, but I'm not going to be going into specifically more data. I've set out an approach that we will undertake, particularly looking at the local NHS with local councils to make sure we get discharges more effectively.
Dr. Ben Spencer.
Dr. Ben Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome the announcement today from my right honourable friend. Healthcare providers in Runnymede and Weybridge tell me the biggest challenge they face is recruitment and attention, and driving that is staff being poached by London. London can offer London waiting, yet we face equal, if not sometimes higher living costs. Would my right honourable friend agree with me that the NHS needs more flexibility when setting staff remuneration, and will this form part of the measures she'll announce in the upcoming expanding workforce plan?
Well, I thank my honourable friend. I'm conscious that there is London waiting, but I think it is up to the local NHS to make decisions and NHS trusts on how they reward and encourage people to be participating in their hospitals.
Tamanjit Singh Desi.
Tamanjit Singh Desi.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Under the last Labour government, patients were guaranteed a GP appointment within 48 hours, but the Conservatives came into power and scrapped that standard. I think it's all part of the managed decline of our NHS, because after 12 years, GP numbers are down. More than 300 GP practices have closed since 2019 alone, and many of my Slough constituents cannot get a GP appointment when they want one. So does the Secretary of State agree with me that the 2019 Tory manifesto promise of delivering an extra 50 million GP appointments and over 6,000 more GPs isn't worth the paper that it's written on?
Yeah. We're actually on track with getting the extra 50 million appointments already.
Where am I? Laura Trott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I welcome the statement today. The majority of GPs, 75%, now work part-time. Now, that's an understandable choice for them, but we need to be honest about the impact that this is having on availability of appointments and also on costs of training. Will my right honourable friend look at what she can do to address the barriers to more GPs working full-time?
Well, one of the ways is about, it's a choice for GPs on whether they work part-time or full-time, but I'm conscious that some of the different things that we're doing on changing and pension flexibilities should help, as well as diverting people, requiring them not to have to go to GP appointments, but could do things whether to pharmacy and other approaches as well.
Charlotte Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This morning I met with the Warrington and Halton NHS Trust regarding their bid for a new hospital in Warrington, which is desperately overdue. Our bid is through to the final stages of the government's tendering process, but there is concern that timetables are increasingly slipping, putting the bid at risk and driving delays in treatment due to facilities that aren't fit for the need we have locally, despite the best efforts of our NHS staff. Can the Secretary of State please therefore confirm that the government still intends to honour the previous government's plans for new hospitals, and that these decisions will be made without further delay?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, of course, we're still considering all the proposals coming through, the different business cases, and we will respond in due course.
Steve Double.
much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome the Secretary of State's statement. The NHS in Cornwall faces a unique set of circumstances through being a rural peninsula, an ageing population, but also the impact of tourism means that in terms of pressure on the NHS, it is always winter in Cornwall. Can I ask the Secretary of State, does she recognise the unique challenges that we face in Cornwall, and would she or one of her ministers meet with me and other Cornish MPs at the earliest opportunity to discuss what support we can give to the NHS, not just to get through this winter, but ahead of the summer season next year?
Well, my honourable friend, right honourable friend, the Minister for Secondary Care, will be visiting Cornwall to meet the Ambulance Trust and indeed the Trust more broadly.
Barry Gardner.
Last month, my constituent Alan Souther phoned 999 at 7 in the evening. His wife had suffered a stroke. He knew the signs: face, arm, speech, time, the urgency of medical care. That care arrived 5 hours later at 1 o'clock in the morning. The Health Secretary can make all the ambitions and expectations and targets that she likes, but does she agree that she will not have the human resource to achieve them unless she addresses the workforce strategy and the 132,000 vacancies that currently exist in the NHS?
I am sad and concerned to hear about the cases just mentioned. It is unacceptable, but I've already set out to the House today aspects of how to improve ambulance responses, and it's my intention that will be delivered right across the country.
Dr. James Davis.
Thank you. I welcome this plan for patients, which recognises the importance of data within the NHS in England. My right honourable friend will be aware of extreme concern over the state of the NHS in North Wales. So will she affirm her commitment to UK-wide comparable and interoperable data within the NHS and a potential for the Data Protection and Digital Information Bill to bring this about?
Well, I thank my honourable friend, who is a practising GP and very committed to his constituents as the MP as well. I think it's fair to say he will recognise that the NHS in Wales is run by the Labour government there. However, he is right to point out that it's important that we work across the United Kingdom by sharing information, by putting patients first, and we will continue to work to try and make sure that happens.
I was about to draw matters to a close, it being 17 minutes past 2, but I appreciate that the opposition front bench might point out that the people for the next debate are not yet present. So, therefore, I will extend the statement for a very short while, but I should note that it's not very good practice not to be here. Barbara Keeley.
Madam Deputy Speaker, as one exasperated constituent put it to me on not being able to get a GP appointment, it seems there are too many patients and not enough doctors, and this has gotten worse over the last few years. Now, my constituents can grasp the workforce issues, but not Secretary of State, it seems. And I agree with my honourable friend from Wirral South. It is deeply worrying that the new Secretary of State did not mention pay of care staff, when that is the crucial issue to tackle the 160,000 vacancies in the care sector. So can't you tell me why is the government choosing not to tackle the shortage of doctors, nurses and care staff, which is leading to such long wait times for my constituents?
Well, we are getting more clinicians, doctors and nurses into the NHS, and I already shared with the House the approach on care.
Justin Tomlinson.
Speaker, I welcome the greater use of pharmacists to ease pressure on GPs. However, for patient safety with ongoing treatment, it is essential GPs can see what has been prescribed through the pharmacy module on the GP system, which at present community pharmacists do not have access. Will the Secretary of State unlock this?
I thank my honourable friend, and yes, I will ask one of my ministers to look into that particular issue.
Lisa Cameron.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome the Health Secretary to her place. As Chair of the Health All-Party Parliamentary Group, I've been hearing from people right across the United Kingdom that it's face-to-face appointments with GPs that are really required. Being on the telephone, Zoom appointments, particularly for very clinically sensitive issues, mental health issues, for people with autism who find it very difficult to speak through those modes of communication. Can she reassure the House that face-to-face appointments will be a priority going forward?
Well, I thank the Honourable Lady, but I trust I trust doctors to have that relationship with their patients directly rather than me prescribing or mandating a particular approach. What I think will happen with the transparency, the publication of a lot of this data is that gradually more and more we can see that, but it's important that I don't directly say that XYZ has to be seen by a doctor. It really matters for the clinical need.
Peter Aldous.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is welcome that D is for dentists, and as a constituency neighbour, my right honourable friend is very much aware that there is a crisis in NHS dentistry in Suffolk. There have been some improvements, and it is welcome, as she has mentioned, that work has started on a new NHS dental contract. But can my right honourable friend confirm that she is committed to root and branch reform that also includes fair funding, a strategic long-term approach to recruitment and retention, a proper prevention policy, and transparent and full local accountability?
Well, I thank my honourable friend, and he's right, and I think in Lowestoft in particular there has been increasing provision in his constituency. Meanwhile, in Leiston, at the moment, there's not a single dental practice that will take up the opportunity to provide NHS dental care at the moment. So this does need sorting. I accept that entirely, and that's why with the local NHS we'll be putting the priority on them to make sure that we avoid these dental deserts, but in terms of other aspects of the contract this will continue to evolve.
And now I will draw matters to a close with one last question from Dan Jarvis.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. When someone has cancer, every day is an emergency. In Weston Park Cancer Centre in Sheffield do outstanding work treating patients not just from my region but from right around the country. I've been grateful for the engagement of previous Secretary of States and other ministers with regard to securing the investment needed for the urgent refurbishment of Weston Park. Will the Secretary of State give me an undertaking that she'll continue, along with her ministers, to work with me to do everything that we can to continue to support Weston Park in their important work?
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman. I don't have specific details about that, but I know that my right honourable friend would be happy to follow up with him. I am very conscious about the impact of cancer. This is one of the reasons why, instead of just having a 48-hour target, which would predominantly be predicted by emergency diagnosis by GPs, I want that broader target so that people who are showing symptoms, want to go and see their doctor but are concerned about it, do actually have the opportunity that they can have that assurance that they'll be seeing their GP so that diagnosis can start as quickly as possible, particularly on issues like cancer.
No one can deny that politicians are pretty important people, as I'm sure they'd be the first to remind us. After all, it's up to them to make the laws which govern our lives. You and I might call them bigwigs, and the origin of this word can be found in Parliament's judicial heritage. Westminster Hall in the Houses of Parliament was the meeting place for the law courts for almost 7 centuries, and wigs first made an appearance there when Charles II made them essential wear for polite society. Wigs were expensive to purchase and to keep in condition, and were the preserve of the wealthy and powerful. Normal British citizens didn't own a wig, let alone wear one. People started to use the phrase as wigs fell out of fashion towards the end of the 18th century, and the British judiciary, who wore full-bottom wigs, were one of the only professions left wearing them. So the biggest wigs around were to be found in the Palace of Westminster, and once a year, for the state opening of Parliament, they still are.
Thank you, Llywydd, and I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge yesterday's events and to pass on my deepest sympathy to the royal family. Our programme for government is clear. We will maximise fairness for all and eliminate inequality at every level of society. Wales will be a country where nobody is held back and nobody is left behind. Within education, our ambition to help realise these aims has been evident, prioritising approaches that will lessen the inequalities created through socio-economic disadvantage and ensuring that all learners have the very best chances of success. These ambitions have been no less prominent in our planning and in the speed of implementation of our commitment as part of our cooperation agreement with Plaid Cymru to deliver free school meals to all primary pupils across Wales. We have committed to making sure that no child goes hungry in school. We announced our shared ambition in November, and in less than 9 months, we have begun delivering for some of our youngest pupils across Wales. But Llywydd, this has been no small challenge. It has involved infrastructure audits of more than 1,000 schools across Wales and a capital investment of £60 million into school kitchens and dining facilities. A £25 million upfront investment supported by a further £35 million recently announced. It means that an additional 45,000 pupils are now eligible for a meal at lunchtime in their school, and by April next year that figure will increase to 66,000. By the end of the rollout, our £200 million investment will ensure that an additional 186,000 pupils across Wales will benefit from the offer of a nutritious meal while they are at school.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank our local authority colleagues, as well as schools across Wales, for working with us to achieve this first milestone. It has taken significant partnership working and a Team Wales approach, which is already benefiting thousands of pupils and immediately putting money back into their families' pockets. We've worked at pace to develop an evidence-based initial unit rate per meal, which has allowed us to issue funding allocations to local authorities to begin delivery of universal provision. I have agreed that a review of the unit rate should be carried out using data on both fixed and variable costs provided by local authorities in order to develop a deeper understanding of real costs and possibly refine the unit rate for future years. And that review is starting now. We've also worked to ensure that our own policies, programmes of work and funding streams that rely on traditional free school meal eligibility as an indicator continue to work effectively. Over the summer, a national campaign has begun to promote free school meals, to encourage registration of pupils and, crucially, to make families aware of the additional, wider support that we are making available to help them through the cost of living rises. The vast majority of local authorities have confirmed that they are able to deliver to years 1 and 2, as well as reception, by April 2023. 8 authorities are already delivering to all of those year groups. A small number of authorities are yet to commit to that date, and we are working with them to overcome infrastructure challenges and to secure a firm commitment to the date from them. We will then publish rollout plans across all local authorities for the first year of delivery. From September 2023, we will extend free school meals to all other primary school years. We don't want to hold anyone back, and I look forward to updating members on our future rollout plans. Equity, well-being and progression are at the heart of our strategic approach. Expanding our offer to all primary school children helps tackle the stigma that still is sometimes unfortunately associated with targeted support. It helps families who previously weren't eligible for free school meals but still struggled to make ends meet, and it levels the playing field for all primary children to sit together and enjoy the same meal, promoting their right to food and to education. A nutritious school meal for all primary pupils is just the start. We are setting the scene to change the way that we eat in Wales, transforming school food culture and changing consumption habits. By creating an opportunity for all primary children to share and enjoy a meal together, we hope to reap the benefits of our investment in pupils' learning, in their social skills and in their longer-term health. We know that our universal approach here is warranted. And we also now turn our focus to how we better use our levers to drive public procurement, to support local food production and distribution, to benefit local economies, and to better connect learners with the origins of the food that they eat. Our conditions of grant funding to local authorities for delivery of the universal provision and our significant investment is providing a catalyst for this work to begin in earnest. Finally, Director Llywydd, I wanted to update members on our free school meal provision during school holiday periods. We shouldn't forget that Wales has led the way in the UK throughout the pandemic in our delivery of food provision to those eligible for free school meals during school holiday periods. This has been supported by an investment of over £100 million to date. Our school holiday free school meal provision was due to finish at the end of the summer holidays this year. But working with our cooperation agreement partners, Plaid Cymru, in light of the increasing cost of living and the pressure this is already putting on family budgets, today I am pleased to confirm that together we've now been able to allocate funding to extend holiday food provision for pupils traditionally eligible for a free school meal until the end of the February half-term next year. This means a further investment of £11 million to support some of our most disadvantaged learners. I will continue to keep members of the Senedd up to date, Director Llywydd, on the progress of the rollout of our primary free school meals commitment.
Laura Andrews.
Diolch. Thank you for your statement, Minister. I have three simple questions I'd like to answers to. Minister, I understand and appreciate that the new extra monies have been made available to upgrade and expand kitchens, but the timing of the monies given was of some concern to me. I was just wondering whether all the upgrades have been able to, in our schools have been able to be made in time for the new term that has already begun, ensuring that schools do